Episode 41 Uchiha Shisui. The next day, the Watergate Squad's mission level was indeed raised by 1 level, allowing them to accept sea-level missions. Minato casually accepted a mission to subdue mountain bandits. This mission isn't actually that difficult, you're unlikely to encounter any ninjas. However, it requires leaving the village, and because it's not close to the village, you might need to spend a whole day away from home. This was intentional on Minato's part, to train the 7th Squad's wilderness survival skills. Because it was the first time they were leaving the village to carry out a mission, and the mission was accepted rather hastily, Minato gave everyone half a day to prepare. Unexpectedly, the things they discussed yesterday came in handy immediately, so Obito had no choice but to swallow his pride and ask Fugaku for some sealing scrolls. Fortunately, before the war began, this clan chief was a rather reclusive man who rarely left his clan territory, so Obito found him with ease. At that moment, Fugaku Uchiha was entertaining another member of the Uchiha clan at home. When Obito came to visit, he invited Obito in as well. Obito arrived at the familiar living room and saw familiar people making tea as usual. Uchiha Makoto was still holding Itachi and playing with him. There was also a little one sitting on the guest seat. Obito couldn't help but retort, does Clan Chief Fugaku really enjoy inviting Uchiha kids to his house for tea? However, he recognized this little one. Uchiha Shisui, a true genius of the Uchiha clan, will make a name for himself as the Shisui of the body flicker in the Third Shinobi World War. Shisui was a genius from a young age. No wonder Fugaku invited him for tea. However, recalling Shisui's fate in his previous life, Obito couldn't help but sigh slightly. Despite awakening the Mangekyou Sharingan at a young age, he was troubled by the relationship between the village and his clan. Because he trusted Konoha, he reported his Mangekyou Sharingan abilities without reservation, only to be betrayed by the cunning Danzo, who stole one of his eyes. Caught between the village and his clan, he had no choice but to commit suicide by jumping off a cliff, dying young. Furthermore, Shisui's death severely traumatized Itachi, causing him to awaken his own eyes, indirectly leading to the annihilation of the Uchiha clan. Thinking about this, Obito also became slightly curious about Shisui. In his previous life, he didn't have much interaction with Jishui. Before the Third War, he was an orphan and a true loser. Coupled with his unconventional personality, he was ostracized by his clan. Shisui, however, was different. He was a genius among geniuses, a descendant of a prestigious family, and a rising star on whom the Uchiha clan placed great hopes. The two of them belonged to completely different worlds and rarely saw each other. They might bump into each other on the street, but they wouldn't even exchange a nod. After the Third Shinobi World War, Obito no longer belonged to Konoha village, and they had little interaction after that. Obito did want to entice Shisui to join the Akatsuki, but by then, the Nine Tails attack had already occurred, and the relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha had become very tense. Shisui's heart was entirely devoted to his clan and the village. Obito knew that such a stubborn person was unlikely to betray the village, so he gave up on recruiting Shisui. Of course, through Shisui, he also discovered Itachi's treasure trove and began to associate with him. Since Itachi had invited him to help during the massacre of his clan, he readily agreed and successfully acquired a wall full of Sharingan eyes. Thinking of this, Obito's expression became rather strange. At this moment, everyone who could determine the future of the Uchiha clan had gathered together. No one understood better than the people in this room what it meant to wipe out the entire clan. Fugaku, however, was the first to smile and wave when he saw Obito arrive. Obito, what are you waiting for? Come and sit down. Let me introduce you to another little genius in our clan, Uchiha Shisui. He's a descendant of Uchiha Kagami, a member of the second Hokage's personal guard. Obito nodded, sat down, and greeted Shisui. Hello, our Uchiha clan's little genius. Uchiha Itachi's heart stirred slightly. Although he is still young, he already has a mature mind. He had long heard of Obito's reputation. He was a prominent figure in this year's Ninja Academy and was said to have graduated as the top student. However, Obito's reputation within the Uchiha clan was not good. Not only was he considered an outcast, but he also failed to awaken the Sharingan, a symbol of strength. However, what happened today made Uchiha Shisui feel that something was amiss. When the Fugaku clan chief summoned him, he had a cold and aloof demeanor. But when facing Obito, he seemed like a completely different person. His posture was outrageously humble, and Shisui even had a vague feeling that the Fugaku clan chief was trying to curry favor with Obito. Ji-Shui was somewhat puzzled. Where did an unenlightened member of his tribe acquire such magical power? But being always polite, he naturally responded appropriately to Obito's greeting. You must be Obito-senpai? I've heard you're very talented. I look forward to working with you in the future. Obito smiled at Shisui, then glanced at Itachi, and asked, Shisui, do you like Itachi? Uchiha Shisui glanced at Itachi in Makoto's arms, then immediately nodded, giving a sincere smile. I really like him. The moment I saw Itachi, I felt he was special. Maybe he'll become a great figure who changes our clan in the future. Hearing Shisui's praise, Makoto was overjoyed and couldn't resist teasing Itachi, saying, Itachi, did you hear that? Shisui praised you too. Aren't you going to say thank you? At this time, the little Itachi couldn't speak yet, but he seemed to have already learned to understand his mother's meaning. In addition, he was indeed very close to Shisui and immediately showed a posture that wanted to hug her. Seeing this, Shisui took the ferret from Makoto's arms and began to tease it. So, their bond was formed from the very beginning. They really are very close. Obito couldn't help but think. At this moment, Fugaku had already brewed tea, poured a cup, and pushed it towards Obito. Obito, let's get down to business. What brings you here today? Obito quickly replied with a smile, it's nothing serious. I just wanted to get some sealing scrolls from clan chief Fugaku. Fugaku laughed and said, I see. Obito, you want to carry some weapons with you? Obito shook his head. No, it's for carrying some practical daily necessities when going out on missions like tents and sleeping berths. Shisui couldn't help but glance at him, thinking that Chief Fugaku would definitely not approve of such wasteful behavior. However, Fugaku Uchiha's actions greatly surprised him. Fugaku said enthusiastically, I see. Obito, you'll need to bring a few more scrolls, otherwise you won't have enough space. The Uchiha storeroom has plenty of these. I'll have someone send you 10 of the largest ones later. Shisui couldn't help but ask quietly, Clan leader, what is your relationship with Obito-senpai? He didn't say aloud, is Obito your illegitimate son? Fugaku looked at Shisui with a cryptic smile. Shisui, Obito is an unparalleled genius, unmatched in the history of our Uchiha clan. You should get closer to Obito in the future. If you encounter any difficulties in your training, you can ask him for guidance. Seeing this, Obito inwardly scoffed, when did I ever agree to teach Shisui? However, considering Shisui's excellence, he felt that it wasn't entirely impossible to offer some pointers. Shisui was taken aback, not expecting the Fugaku clan head to say that. It seemed the rumors were indeed unreliable. How could Obito and the Uchiha have a bad relationship? Didn't you see how enthusiastic the clan head was? He politely asked Obito again, Obito-senpai, if I ever have any questions in the future, may I come to you for help? In truth, Shisui wasn't entirely convinced. As a genius, he possessed the pride of one and didn't believe he was much inferior to Obito. Therefore, he wanted to find an opportunity to spar with Obito. Looking at Shisui's expression, Obito knew exactly what he was thinking, so he smiled and said, Shisui, you're welcome to come see me anytime, but be prepared, I can be very strict. Episode 42 Uchiha Madara notices something unusual. After speaking to Shisui, Obito looked curiously at Fugaku, clan chief Fugaku. What is the purpose of inviting Shisui here this time? Fugaku Uchiha coughed a few times, his face slightly flushed. It's nothing serious. I just heard that Kagami-senpai's descendant is doing well at the ninja academy, so as an elder, I wanted to offer my concern. Obito glanced at Fugaku with disdain, then understood. He'd heard another Uchiha genius had emerged from the ninja academy, and immediately remembered that this genius had a remarkable ancestor. Ha, hypocrisy. Obito, not wanting to linger, stood up and said, well then, Chief Fugaku, see you next time. I still have a mission to carry out later. As for the scroll you promised me, I can go to the storeroom to get it myself. Seeing this, Fugaku nodded and tossed Obito a token. This is a token for our Uchiha clan's treasury. With this, you can come and go freely. If you need anything, just take it yourself. Take as much as you want from the treasury. Just make a backup. Obito was taken aback. He hadn't expected Fugaku to give him this token. It was an elder's token, and only a handful of people in the entire Uchiha clan possessed it. Seeing this, Fugaku laughed and said, what's wrong, the newly appointed 8th elder? Don't you want to be an elder of our Uchiha clan? Obito snorted. I'm not really interested in the elder's position, but it's not bad to be able to use power for personal gain. Since you're offering it, I'll accept it. Everyone present, except for Itachi who knew nothing, showed a hint of embarrassment. Hey, do you have to make it sound so blatant about abusing power for personal gain? Especially Shisui, he no longer doubted that Obito was Fugaku's illegitimate son. How could a mere illegitimate son make Fugaku so generous? This was clearly his father, wasn't he? Regardless of Shisui's thoughts, Obito took the token and left without hesitation. Fugaku watched his departing figure, a wicked smile spreading across his face. Obito had gotten into the Uchiha clan's carriage. Getting off now wouldn't be so easy. No amount of money or power could compare to a 9-year-old with a kaleidoscope-like appearance. If Obito weren't so young, Fugaku might have even considered handing over the clan chiefship to him. On the other side, Obito arrived at the Uchiha clan's private supply warehouse. This is the core area of the Uchiha clan, and those who guard it are all powerful individuals. The 2-3 Tomo Sharingan activated almost simultaneously, blocking Obito's path. Kid, stop. This isn't a place for you. Obito glanced at the two men. Oh, what a coincidence. Aren't they the police officers who blocked his path and were chained up one by one when he assisted Itachi Uchiha in his previous life during the massacre of the Uchiha clan? There was no point in trying to reason with this kind of person. Obito revealed a hint of murderous intent and simultaneously displayed his token. What, you're not planning to let us through? Both were shocked. This was an elder's token. How could it be with a child? But more than the elder's decree, they were surprised by the killing intent released by Obito, which even made them feel a sense of dread. The two looked at each other and simultaneously let go of each other's hands. Perhaps a single token wouldn't be enough to make them back down, but knowing that Obito was not someone to be trifled with, yet still choosing to provoke him, they weren't proud Uchiha, but rather foolish Uchiha. Obito Uchiha sneered. These two were quite sensible. He swaggered into the storeroom. After taking 10 sealing scrolls and a large number of the finest kunai and shuriken, he thought for a moment and decided not to empty the storeroom. It's not that he can't bring himself to do it, but if he goes too far now, it might affect the Uchiha's future support for Akatsuki, which would be a losing proposition. So he only took what he was supposed to take and left. Meanwhile, in the land of grass, far from Konoha, near the Kanabai Bridge, in a cave buried deep underground, with tubes inserted into his body by the Gedo Mazo, the sleeping old man was shaken awake by two goofy white Zetsu around him. Madara Uchiha opened his eyes, revealing a pair of Sharingan with 3 Tomo. Speak, what intelligence is it this time? Didn't I order that unless it's important, you shouldn't disturb my slumber during this period? The vortex-faced white Zetsu grinned and said, this is definitely big news. The Third Shinobi World War is about to begin. A hint of disdain flashed in Madara's eyes. This is something I expected. Then, he murmured, Hashirama, the facts prove you were wrong. In the short few decades since you left, countless wars have broken out in the ninja world, and countless people have died, more than during the Warring States period. After a moment of silence, he continued, anything else? You won't bother me just because of news about a war, will you? Another white Zetsu said. Of course, Madara, that kid named Obito you asked us to keep an eye on. His recent performance has been a bit unexpected. This time, Ban finally perked up. Oh, tell me more. Baiju said, that child is indeed very enthusiastic, just as you said. However, he's not only enthusiastic, he's also extremely talented, graduating first in his class from the Ninja Academy. He doesn't seem like a fool at all. Ban was somewhat surprised this time. I didn't expect that kid to get first place. This is beyond my expectations. However, he's just the top student in the Ninja Academy. He's not entirely without strength. He was just suppressed by that guy named Kakashi before. Ban didn't care. How could someone he had his eye on really lack talent? Awakening the Mangekyou Sharingan requires not only emotional stimulation but also a suitable bloodline. Obito was the most outstanding Uchiha clan member, having passed all the necessary tests. The man with the vortex-shaped face grinned and said, then, Madara, it's quite normal for him to become an elder of the Uchiha clan. What? Madara's eyes widened instantly. White Zetsu, this time you've actually brought back some useful information. Madara then fell into thought. How could Obito suddenly become an elder of the Uchiha clan? This didn't make sense. Could it be that the current leaders of the Uchiha clan had lost their minds? Have you figured out why he became an elder of the Uchiha clan? The vortex-faced Shiro nods. We've roughly figured it out. After graduation, he accepted the clan leader Fugaku's invitation to have tea at Fugaku's house. We didn't dare get too close at the time, afraid of being discovered, but after Obito came out, Fugaku suddenly ordered people to investigate 3 people. Madara, you'll definitely be interested in these 3 people. Ban frowned. Speak, who is it? Hehe, it's Yahiko, Conan, and Nagato. Madara was somewhat surprised this time. Could it be that Fugaku has noticed some clues? White Zetsu shook his head. No, Fugaku didn't investigate anything about the Rinnegan. Instead, he investigated an organization called Akatsuki that these 3 had just formed, and whether these 3 were Jiraiya's students. Spot nodded. Why is Fugaku investigating these things? Could this information have originated from Obito? White Zetsu said, that's possible. It seems that Fugaku's main purpose in investigating these things is to support the Akatsuki organization, cooperate with Hanzo of the Salamander, and also befriend Jiraiya. Madara was a smart man. After some thought, he realized that this move would be very beneficial to the Uchiha clan. HMPH, what a clever scheme. This isn't something that idiot Fugaku could have come up with, so the plan must have been Obito's doing. When did he develop such a brilliant mind? The spots began to darken, but that's not enough for Obito to obtain the position of elder. Elders in the Uchiha clan are either highly respected elders or exceptionally powerful individuals, such as those who have awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. Could it be that, for some unknown reason, Obito awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan? How is that possible? He's only a few years old. Episode 43 reveals information about Madara and White Zetsu. 9 years old, Lord Madara, but he hasn't awakened his Sharingan yet, at least not from the information we've received. Madara Uchiha breathed a sigh of relief. If someone had awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan at the age of 9, even he would have been shocked. Of course, he didn't know that he had actually stumbled upon the truth by accident. Then, what made Obito a member of the Uchiha clan? The vortex-faced White Zetsu pondered for a moment. Perhaps it's because he learned the Flying Thunder God technique. What? The technique that Tobirama Senju invented to severely injure Izuna. Isn't it the same name? Madara was shocked this time. Obito's mastery of the Flying Thunder God technique seemed to be almost on par with Madara's Mangekyou Sharingan. Bai Zetsu confirmed, it's that technique. I saw it during their training. His body instantly disappeared from his spot and moved a considerable distance. Although we didn't dare get too close for fear of being discovered, it's definitely the Flying Thunder God technique. Madara's mood immediately soured. If Obito really learns this technique, then becoming an elder of the Uchiha clan seems plausible. After all, even Izuna, who awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. White Zetsu asked in surprise, even if you learn this technique, it doesn't mean you'll become a strong person, does it? Madara Uchiha scoffed. What do you know? This technique might not be the strongest in battle, but it's the best for running away. With this technique, his survivability will be greatly enhanced, making it harder to control his life. White Zetsu chuckled. So, Lord Madara, are you planning to abandon him and find a new target? Madara Uchiha confidently shook his head. No, it's still him. As long as he understands the cruelty of the world, given his personality, all love will turn into hate. Sooner or later, he will become one of us. White Zetsu became curious. So, Lord Madara, what are you going to do? Ban pondered for a moment and said, is the one he loves still that little girl named Lin? Baiju nodded. Yes, and compared to the past, their relationship has greatly strengthened. We even observed that little Lin spent a night at his house. Ban laughed. That's good. As long as he witnesses Lin's death with his own eyes, he will definitely fall into despair and depravity. Looks like I'll have to make a trip to Kirigakure. Madara planned to implant the 3 tails into Rin's body while she was away on a mission during the war and then return to Konoha to wreak havoc. For the sake of the entire village's safety, Konoha will definitely kill Rin. At that time, Obito will despair of the war in the world, and then he can take the opportunity to reveal the Eye of the Moon plan. A slight smile appeared on his freckled face. Meanwhile, Rin and Kakashi had already brought the prepared supplies to the agreed meeting point. Kakashi was stunned when he saw the 10 large capacity sealing scrolls that Obito had brought. Obito, did you rob the Uchiha clan? Kakashi knew very well that these kinds of scrolls were often impossible to buy even if you had the money. Obito chuckled, glanced around, and whispered, Rin, Kakashi, since my Mangekyou Sharingan was revealed to Fugaku Uchiha, I am now an elder of the Uchiha clan. Elder, the two felt like they were dreaming. How did Obito so easily become an elder of the Uchiha clan, the most powerful clan in Konoha, at the height of its power? Obito continued in a low voice, in short, this matter will likely cause a series of chain reactions. Not many people know about it openly yet, so please keep it a secret for me. The two nodded. Obito had too many things to keep secret, so they simply kept everything a secret. Kakashi frowned and said, you mean you don't know much on the surface? Which means someone knows secretly. Who is it? Danzo? Obito almost laughed. Kakashi, your thinking is correct. You can always attribute any bad thing to Danzo. But this time, when I said someone secretly knew, I meant this person has an extremely powerful intelligence network. Unless it's some extremely confidential information, he can find out anything in the ninja world as long as there's a trace left. The two weren't particularly shocked this time. Obito was always very cautious about revealing anything, constantly paying attention to his surroundings, which might be related to this person. However, the thought of being constantly monitored by someone lurking in the shadows sent chills down their spines. Obito, are there really people like that in the ninja world? Rin shuddered and couldn't help but ask. Obito nodded. It really is. That's why I haven't dared to tell you much information that would attract this person's attention. First, I'm afraid you'll give yourself away, and second, you were all too young before. Even if you didn't give yourself away, you were easily noticed because you were always on guard. Kakashi understood. So, as we grow stronger and our mental fortitude improves, and with you mastering the Flying Thunder God technique, you plan to gradually reveal this information to us? Obito said, that's right. Mainly, as the commotion I cause gets bigger, he'll notice. There's no way to hide it now. I've always been a key person he's monitoring. As you probably guessed, he's the one who led me down this path. Rin nodded, clenching her small fist. That person is truly despicable. He's the one who killed me, which led to the tragedy that befell you, Obito. If possible, I want to know who he is. Obito thought for a moment and said, since Rin is so eager to know, I won't hide it from you. His name is Uchiha Madara. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Uchiha Madara. The two exclaimed in unison. Obito warned, keep your voice down. Madara has a type of intelligence agent called White Zetsu. They can blend into plants or the earth, and even ninjas with exceptional sensory abilities might not be able to detect them because they are essentially part of nature. The two immediately composed themselves. Lin cautiously surveyed their surroundings before whispering, are there many White Zetsu intelligence agents like these? Obito said, that's right, a lot. During the 4th Shinobi World War, I deployed over 100,000 White Zetsu, not even counting those lurking in various places. Konoha conservatively estimates there are 50 to 100 White Zetsu. Basically, the entire Konoha is under Madara's surveillance. So many White Zetsu? The two dared not speak, but their breathing became rapid. It turns out that Konoha, which was considered by most people to be very good at keeping secrets, had long been infiltrated and turned into a sieve. Kakashi frowned and asked, has White Zetsu never been discovered before? Obito thought for a moment and said, the troublesome thing about White Zetsu is that their sensory abilities are also excellent. If they sense that you might notice something amiss, they will immediately stay far away. For example, many powerful individuals possess a mysterious sixth sense, so White Zetsu won't easily approach them. This way, these powerful individuals won't have the opportunity to detect White Zetsu. Kakashi's eyes widened. Then White Zetsu would be invincible. Obito scoffed. Kakashi, the White Zetsu are hard to defend against precisely because you don't know them, but they know you. But if their intelligence is leaked, humanity, with its clever brain, can still find many ways to counter it. For example, during the 4th Shinobi World War, humanity used various methods to find White Zetsu. Kakashi and Rin breathed a sigh of relief. Lin asked, so, how do we find White Zetsu? Obito laughed. Our situation is more unique. Because of my rebirth, we are in the shadows while the White Zetsu are in the light. We knew about the White Zetsu beforehand, but the White Zetsu didn't know about us. So, with a little planning, capturing the White Zetsu isn't actually that difficult. Episode 44 The Art of Resurrection. Have we caught a White Zetsu? Kakashi pondered for a moment. A more realistic approach is to first have preventative measures in place. Obito shook his head. White Zetsu are interconnected. If you guard against one White Zetsu, all White Zetsu will know you can guard against it. That won't do. Therefore, once a White Zetsu is discovered, it's best to capture it immediately. This way, it won't be able to transmit any information. Although this will still leak some information, it's better than letting all the White Zetsu know that we already know about them. Can intelligence still be shared? This is really troublesome. Even Kakashi felt a headache coming on. Obito, however, said, Kakashi, don't think so much. Actually, as long as we defeat Madara, the mastermind behind it all, the White Zetsu problem will naturally be solved. Kakashi's eyes lit up. That's right, to catch the thief, first catch the king. So, Obito, the Uchiha Madara you mentioned, is he the one who founded Konoha village? Obito nodded and said, yes. Lin's head started to ache. It's said that Madara Uchiha, shortly after founding Konoha, had a falling out with the first Hokage and left. A few years later, he returned to attack Konoha and was killed by the first Hokage at the Valley of the End. Although the first generation killed him, legend says his power was roughly equal to the first generation's. If the first Hokage was truly as strong as Obito says, and Madara is still alive, then wouldn't there be another god of shinobi in the shinobi world? Thinking of this, Rin couldn't help but worry. The key issue was that this god of ninjas had also set his sights on Obito and on her. Obito quickly reassured her, "Don't worry, Rin. Madara in his prime certainly possessed power that could overwhelm the entire ninja world, but he's old now, and his eyes are no longer on his body, so he can't unleash much of his full strength. Furthermore, even if he could unleash his full power and even reclaim his eyes, as long as I can transplant Hashirama cells and awaken both Kamui, I could still hold my own against him." Rin asked curiously, "Obito, you said Madara's eyes aren't on him and need to be retrieved. So where are they now?" Obito slowly said, "Nagato, you've heard this name before, from Nagato." Rin checked her memory. "I remember now, it was that person from the land of rain, that poor soul who lost his home." Obito laughed. "Thank goodness you still remember, Rin. That's right, it was him. Madara won't easily get his eyes back, because he still needs Nagato to use the ninjutsu of those eyes to revive in the future." Resurrection. Rin and Kakashi were shocked. Could there really be a ninjutsu like resurrection in this world? Kakashi asked, "Is this something the Mangekyou Sharingan can do?" Obito, "Maybe. After all, Kamui was able to transcend life and death, sending his power from the underworld to Kakashi. Although it could only be maintained for a short while, and it was only achieved with the addition of the power of the six paths, it was still a very mysterious thing. Furthermore, Obito cannot yet determine whether his ability to travel back in time is also due to Kamui's intervention. Therefore, it's not impossible that a pair of kaleidoscopes could achieve something similar to reincarnation and true resurrection. Perhaps. In other words, it hasn't been proven that the kaleidoscope can resurrect people, so why was Madara so certain he could do it, and even gave away his eyes? Kakashi asked, puzzled. Obito smiled, because Madara's eyes are no longer the Mangekyou Sharingan, but the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths, the Rinnegan, which is considered the foremost of the three great Dojutsu. Rinnegan. Rin and Kakashi were almost numb with shock. Wasn't this the legendary eye? Obito continued, both the Uchiha and Senju are descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, so when the two combine, especially the chakra of Indra and Ashura, the sons of the Sage of Six Paths, they can unlock the power of all things in the universe, thus evolving the Rinnegan. Rin and Kakashi listened as if to a myth, which, of course, was a myth. Rin asked, Obito, wasn't the Sage of Six Paths son dead? How did their chakra combine? Could it be that, like Hashirama Senju, his cells were preserved? Obito shook his head. Indra and Ashura are dead, but their chakra continues to reincarnate. Madara and Hashirama are the reincarnations of the previous Indra and Ashura. During the battle at the Valley of the End, Madara faked his death. He bit off a piece of Hashirama's flesh, combining Indra's and Ashura's chakra, thus creating the Rinnegan. Of course, this kind of chakra actually points directly to the origin of the soul. Unless it's the person directly involved, simply transplanting cells won't work. In my previous life, I also had Hashirama cells transplanted, and being an Uchiha clan member, I still couldn't awaken the Rinnegan. Rin was astonished. Chakra can be reincarnated through the soul, and even two chakra streams can combine to awaken the Rinnegan. It's simply unbelievable. Then, Rin became puzzled. But Madara possessed the Rinnegan, reaching the level of the Sage of Six Paths you mentioned, becoming invincible. Why then did he give away his eyes to revive himself? Obito denied it, saying, perhaps possessing the Rinnegan is, in a sense, equivalent to reaching the Six Paths level, but the Sage of Six Paths not only possesses a pair of eyes, but also a vast amount of chakra and yin-yang release techniques, which require becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Of course, even having 1 foot in the Six Paths realm is still the Six Paths realm. If one possessed that level of strength at their peak, they would indeed be invincible. But unfortunately, Madara spent a very long time awakening those Rinnegan, only doing so when he was very old and nearing the end of his life. Kakashi instantly understood. So, that's why he sent his eyes away, trying to revive himself in his prime? Obito nodded. That's right. The Rinnegan possesses a resurrection ninjutsu called Rinne, rebirth, but this technique isn't something ordinary people can use, or even something you can use simply by possessing the Rinnegan. Nagato possesses the whirlpool physique, which can nourish those eyes until one day he can unleash the Rinne reincarnation technique at that level. Madara plans to wait until Nagato reaches that level, and then use magic to resurrect him in his prime. Kakashi's breathing quickened. So, this really is a perfect resurrection without any side effects? Obito nodded. Yes, as long as there's a corpse, it can be resurrected. Even with a forbidden technique recorded in Konoha called the Impure World Reincarnation, even a mutilated corpse can be resurrected as long as you can obtain its cells. Kakashi trembled violently. If he had to pinpoint his biggest regret in life, it would be the death of Hatake Tsukumo. If only he could revive his father. Seeing this, Obito quickly interrupted Kakashi. Kakashi, the conditions for resurrection are rather harsh. First, the person who casts the jutsu must die. Only the power of the Six Paths Yang can bring them back, but that's the power of the Sage of Six Paths, which ordinary people can't obtain. Secondly, to unleash the Rin rebirth technique, one needs someone like Nagato to nurture it for over a decade, or someone like me who has had Hashirama's cells transplanted and awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. Such people are extremely rare in the entire ninja world. Kakashi gradually calmed down. Obito, I won't kill people indiscriminately just to revive father. But, a glint of light flashed in Kakashi's eyes. I understand. As long as one reaches the level of the Sage of Six Paths, one can resurrect the dead with minimal or even no cost, is that right? Episode 45 Kushina, the Big Sister. Obito nodded. Yes, theoretically, as long as one possesses the Six Paths Yang power and the Rinnegan, one can revive the dead without cost when the power is sufficient. Each being at the Six Paths level is terrifying, they can even be immortal. Kakashi nodded, but he immediately noticed something suspicious. Obito, your so-called Six Paths level. Obito chuckled, this is a definition I invented for those at this level of strength. We can't call everyone who reaches this level the Sage of Six Paths, so we simply refer to them as Six Paths level ninjas, just like Genin, Chunin, and Jonin. Rin chuckled. Obito, are you trying to avoid someone stealing your title as the second Sage of Six Paths? Obito chuckled, I'm not that bored, it's just a convenient way of addressing you. Rin also laughed and said, just kidding. I think I roughly understand what Kakashi meant. If the so-called Six Paths level is immortal, then why did the Sage of Six Paths still die? Kakashi, standing to the side, also looked inquisitive. This was exactly what he wanted to ask. Obito thought for a moment and replied, that depends on how we define death. Ordinary people who go to the underworld fall into a deep sleep and lose consciousness. But the Sage of Six Paths didn't. He could easily send his power from the underworld back to the human world. Tell me, someone who has retained consciousness and observed the ninja world for 1,000 years, even if they are no longer in this world, are they considered dead or alive? Rin and Kakashi immediately fell into deep thought. Obito, are you saying the Sage of Six Paths is still alive? Kakashi asked. Obito laughed. See, you also think he's alive? Well, let me tell you definitively, the Sage of Six Paths is not only alive, but he's currently observing the entire ninja world from somewhere. If there's a world-ending crisis, he will pass his power to his sons so they can save the world. Rin exclaimed in surprise, could the Sage of Six Paths really do something like this? Obito, how do you know so much about it? Obito smiled wryly, because I witnessed the future firsthand. The Sage of Six Paths bestowed his power upon the next generation of Indra and Ashura reincarnations, instantly creating two Six Paths level powerhouses, enabling them to save the world. Even if I hadn't ultimately failed, and had actually activated the infinite Tsukuyomi, then the reincarnations of Indra and Ashura of that generation would have been defeated by me. Is that so? The Sage of Six Paths is incredibly powerful. Because such things were so far removed from reality, Lin didn't feel any real connection to them. She only felt an overwhelming sense of admiration. Obito couldn't help but snort. The reason I'm not planning to use infinite Tsukuyomi right now is because I know the success rate is basically zero. Even if I succeed, the Sage of Six Paths will come out and grant his two sons power beyond ordinary levels, then defeat or seal me away. So, I'd better just be a good person. Rin smiled and said, the Sage of Six Paths is really good. He can make Obito a good person, which is more important than anything else. Obito said somewhat displeased, what's so good about it? They never care about the daily wars. As long as the world isn't destroyed, they act like it's none of their business, completely oblivious to the suffering of the common people. Seeing this, Rin advised, alright, Obito, don't be angry with the Sage of Six Paths anymore. I admire him, but he wouldn't fight the whole world for me. In my heart, of course, you, Obito, are more important. Obito's face immediately turned red. Is that so? Haha, that old man, the Sage of Six Paths, isn't bad. Kakashi suddenly asked, Obito, you just said that you personally witnessed the Sage of Six Paths bestow the power of the Six Paths upon his two sons, but the person they fought wasn't you. So who was it? Obito was just about to talk about Kagaya Otsutsuki and Black Zetsu. Anyway, he had already said everything that should and shouldn't have been said today, so he didn't mind saying it all. But at that moment, Obito sensed someone approaching from afar. I'll tell you next time, Minato-sensei is here. Rin and Kakashi had no choice but to suppress their curiosity. In the distance, two figures slowly approached, one golden and one red, their colors complementing each other. Obito sighed. Sure enough, when going on a long trip, Minato-sensei couldn't possibly come alone. To be honest, in his past life, his relationship with Minato was more like that of a subordinate than a master and disciple. Although Minato-sensei was very good to him, it wasn't as good as it was after he showed his talent in this life. In this life, Minato-sensei truly treated him as a disciple. Therefore, although Obito felt guilty towards Minato, Minato was not as important as Rin, and he did not intentionally cause Minato's death. Thus, his guilt was not without limits. However, Kushina was genuinely good to him, truly caring for and looking after him like a son. And his act of releasing the 9 tails was also a deliberate act that led to Kushina's death. So, in an instant, Obito's legs went weak. Lin, I can't take it anymore. Hold me up, my legs won't obey me. Seeing this, Rin and Kakashi instinctively grabbed Obito from either side, preventing him from collapsing to the ground. Kakashi couldn't help but sneer, Obito, after you were reborn, didn't you look down on everyone? You looked down on Konoha's second in command, calling him a rat in the sewers. You looked down on the Sage of Six Paths, saying he was indifferent to things that didn't concern him. Now why are you so weak-kneed? Obito gave a wry smile. Kakashi, you're still laughing at me at a time like this. Help me over there, I need to apologize properly to Big Sister. So, the two of them, supporting Obito, walked towards Minato and his wife. Kushina watched as Team 7 helped Obito, whose legs were weak, walk over, and asked with some confusion, Minato, what happened to that kid in the middle? Seeing his fiancé's bewildered expression, Minato Namikaze breathed a sigh of relief. Kushina, it's good that you don't know him. Huh? Why would I know him? Kushina asked, her face full of confusion. Minato explained somewhat awkwardly. He said he felt extremely guilty towards a member of the Uzumaki clan because he was responsible for that clan's tragedy. This clan member was very similar to him when he was young and desperately wanted to become Hokage. Kushina, I thought he was talking about you. Kushina looked completely bewildered. What nonsense. I don't even know him. However, she still clenched her fist. That kid, right? No matter what, he bullied our Whirlpool clan, and I'm going to teach him a lesson. Seeing this, Minato quickly advised, Kushina, don't be so harsh. That child, for some reason, feels a deep sense of guilt towards us, especially towards you. His guilt towards you is much greater than mine. Look, he's so scared his legs are weak. Please forgive him. Kushina hadn't expected things to turn out this way. Did she feel guilty towards her? What was there to feel guilty about? Never mind, let's just beat them up first. So, Kushina completely ignored Minato's advice and walked forward on her own, clenching her fist and aiming it at Obito. Hey kid, I heard you bullied some of our Whirlpool clan members, is that true? Episode 46, Lin's confession after being beaten up by the boss. Looking at the eldest sister's ever-fiery temper and boundless energy, Obito couldn't help but nod with tears in his eyes. Bump. Quote, Kushina's blood-red hair flew wildly as she punched Obito on the head. Tell me, how did you bully him? That punch really hurt, but for some reason, Obito felt much better all over. He stared into Kushina's eyes and slowly said, I killed his parents, made him an orphan, left him without family to care for him as a child, and made him grow up amidst ridicule and insults. All his misfortunes were created by my own hands. After saying that, Obito's tears flowed again. Kushina was taken aback. Was it that serious? She glanced at Obito's tiny figure. He was only 9 years old, yet he had done such a terrible thing? But when she met Obito's eyes just now, she could feel the myriad emotions contained within them, that guilt, which was clearly directed at her. He definitely deserved it. Kushina delivered another heavy punch to Obito's face, sending him flying and causing his face to swell up. Rin and Kakashi panicked when they saw this. Lin said anxiously, Master's wife, Obito. Rin initially wanted to say that Obito didn't do it on purpose, but upon closer reflection, if it wasn't intentional, then what could have been? So the next thing to say was, Obito, he is indeed a beast, but I beg you, Master's wife, spare his life. Kushina is getting stranger and stranger. Look at this girl, she clearly cares about the boy she beat up, but she can't even say anything to stop him. It seems that what she did was really too much. Really too much. Obito, is it? Kushina strode forward aggressively and grabbed Obito by the collar. I see that you also want to be beaten by me, so as to relieve the guilt in your heart. Then I will satisfy you, and I will not beat you until you are full of teeth. But I won't kill you. After all, your girlfriend seems quite cute, and she pleaded for you. You can explain it to me properly later. After saying that, Kushina decisively grabbed Obito and started punching him mercilessly, without holding back at all. It was a true beating. Lin was trembling all over from the beating, and even Minato couldn't bear to look at it. Kushina, we still don't understand why, let's just forget about it, ha ha ha. Minato instantly appeared and grabbed Kushina's hand. He was truly afraid that if the fight continued, Team 7 would disband. At this moment, Obito was bruised and swollen, on the verge of death, barely clinging to life. Seeing this, Kushina finally released his collar. Minato, what do you know? Don't be fooled by how badly I beat this kid, he's secretly pleased. And I'm sure what he said is true. Since he's your disciple, he's also mine. He's made such a serious mistake and needs to be disciplined. Minato sighed. But, he's still so young. Kushina's heart softened instantly. Looking at Obito lying on the ground, she said, as your comrades, why aren't you helping him? Rin, who had hesitated before, immediately stepped forward and began casting medical ninjutsu, tears streaming down her face. Obito, are you alright? Obito, you have to get better. I promise I'll come to your house more often and sleep by your side. Seeing this, Kushina couldn't help but complain to Minato. Are kids these days so precocious? How old are they, and they're already living together? Minato chuckled awkwardly, then said, Kushina, you went too far. You wouldn't usually act so recklessly. Can you explain why? Kushina's expression changed. Minato, actually he's inviting me to beat him up. Do you believe me? This beating will make him feel much better. Otherwise, if he keeps bottling it up, the pain will never lessen. I don't want him to live such a tiring life. Minato was taken aback. Is that so? Sigh, Obito, why did you have to do that? Kushina shook her head. I don't know either. Let him explain. At worst, I'll cook him more delicious food in the future as compensation. By this time, Obito had regained consciousness. Hearing Rin's words, he instantly perked up and asked, his words slurred, Rin, are you sure what you said is true? Rin blushed, but still unleashed her full medical ninjutsu. Since you're already like this, let's not say too much. Obito looked at Rin and smiled. Rin, you know what? Kushina was very careful with her actions. I really blame myself for being such a coward. Rin touched the wound on Obito's face, tears streaming down her face. I know you feel much better after this beating. You took it on purpose, knowing your teacher's wife wouldn't kill you. So you blame yourself for running away, for being a coward, right? Obito smiled and took Rin's hand. Don't treat it anymore, let it heal on its own. Rin could no longer hold back and yelled at Obito for the first time, you really are a coward. Have you ever thought about me? What will happen to me if you die? Obito paused, then smiled at Rin. Rin, I don't want to run away anymore. I'm sorry, this is what I have to bear. Rin threw herself into Obito's arms and wept bitterly. You always said that you only understand pain when you lose something, and now I understand. I really don't want to lose you, Obito. Rin took a deep breath and said, you've always wanted me to be your girlfriend and date you, right? I said yes, but you must remember, from now on, you can't take your own life. At this moment, Obito could no longer feel pain. He felt that in an instant, he had grown up a lot. It wasn't that the dark Obito from his previous life had grown up, but that the stupid Obito from his childhood had grown up. Rin, it doesn't really matter anymore. We've already crossed that line, haven't we? At this moment, I even feel a little despicable. Rin couldn't help but say, Obito, you know you're despicable. She punched Obito hard. You're not only despicable, you're a B*************************** D. But she just stayed in Obito's arms for a long time, unwilling to leave. The others, who had just been fed a mouthful of dog food, a huxia slang term for witnessing public displays of affection, wore speechless expressions. Minato didn't want to break the warmth of the moment, but the mission had to be accomplished. Kushina immediately understood and said to Minato, Minato, from now on, use the flying thunder god technique to travel. You've made an exception for this. Now, I'd rather spend time listening to that brat's story. Kushina looked at Kakashi. Kakashi, the genius who graduated at 5. I've heard of you. You must know about Obito, right? You explain it to me. Kakashi looked hesitantly at Obito lying on the ground, but this involves many secrets and revealing them would cause serious problems. Kushina had already sensed something and asked, are you afraid Minato will tell the third Hokage? Don't worry, I guarantee that what you said will not reach anyone's ears. Then, Kushina looked at Minato and said in a slightly coquettish tone, honey, is it okay? Episode 47 tells everything. Having already called him husband, what could Minato do? He could only say, embarrassed, don't worry, Kushina, I'll keep it a secret. Kakashi was still hesitant. Even if he didn't reveal it to the third Hokage, he had suddenly discovered today that Madara Uchiha, who was secretly plotting against the ninja world, and White Zetsu. At that moment, Obito reluctantly turned his head to look at Kakashi. Kakashi, speak. You can tell me everything you know. Minato-sensei is trustworthy. Since Kushina has spoken, Minato-sensei won't leak information to the third Hokage. Kakashi nodded, looking at Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki with a serious and solemn expression. Master and mistress, the information I'm about to share is top secret. Please keep it strictly confidential. Seeing Kakashi's serious expression, Minato also took it seriously. Kakashi, let's find another place to talk, somewhere that Obito and Rin can have some peace and quiet. After saying that, Minato put his arm around Kakashi's shoulder, took Kushina's hand, and instantly, the three of them disappeared from the spot. The next moment, the three arrived at a dark room. If Obito were here, he would have discovered that this was the place where Kushina gave birth to Naruto. After busily checking her surroundings, Kushina confidently said, Kakashi, you can speak with peace of mind now. I've set up a high-level barrier around us. No one can eavesdrop on our conversation within this barrier's range. Kakashi nodded, having no doubt about it. Obito once said that his master's wife was the foremost sealing technique master in the ninja world, and few people could surpass her skill. So, he looked at the two of them and slowly said, Minato-sensei, Kushina-sensei misses. Actually, I've known you for a long time. The reason I know you all is because of that guy Obito. Something incredible happened to Obito. He was someone who was reborn from the future and returned to the past. In that future, he did many bad things, the most unforgivable of which was killing you, indirectly causing your children to suffer as well. It all probably begins with a story of a god whose tears could not be hidden. Kakashi spoke for a long time, revealing most of the relevant information, including how Obito turned to the dark side and why he later caused the deaths of the fourth Hokage and his wife. During this time, Minato and Kushina kept asking questions, and Kakashi patiently answered them, just as he had answered Obito's questions. After everything was said, Minato and Kushina were both numb. Kushina looked at Minato and asked, Minato, is it really believable that you were reborn from the future? Minato pondered for a moment. Many pieces of information cannot be faked, such as my ability to use the Flying Thunder God technique, my knowledge of sealing techniques, and my status as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. And there will be a great war in the ninja world in the future, and I will make a name for myself. The third Hokage did tell me to perform well, but I didn't quite understand what he meant at the time. Now I do. Therefore, this intelligence is highly credible. Kushina laughed heartily. Actually, I started to believe it as I listened. She perked up. So, honey, you'll become the fourth Hokage in the future, and we'll have a child named Naruto Uzumaki. If the Nine Tails doesn't cause any trouble, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Minato Namikaze couldn't help but sigh. Yes, I thought Orochimaru would be the fourth Hokage. I was only thinking of vying for the fifth Hokage position, but I never expected to be the fourth Hokage. Kushina hugged Minato and kissed him. My husband is truly the best. HMPH, even if he can't be Hokage, being Hokage's wife isn't bad either. Then, she gave Kakashi a hostile look. So Obito really is a beast. In the future you mentioned, I was so good to him, yet he killed me and gave Naruto a miserable childhood. I suddenly feel like I didn't hit him hard enough. Kakashi, sweating profusely, hurriedly said, Master's wife, I'm not Obito. Please don't take your anger out on me. Kushina snorted. Who told you to collude with that guy? Besides, if it weren't for you, would Obito have fallen into depravity? If you hadn't leaked the information, would Obito have known when I would give birth? Kakashi was instantly speechless. He was truly innocent. Those things weren't done by his present self, but by his future self. Kushina vented her anger for a moment, then regained her optimism. Alright, everyone has their grievances and their debts. In that future, you were a pitiful person too, so I wouldn't take it out on you. But, Kushina said unhappily, Obito is such an ungrateful wretch. How can I ever forgive him? Minato felt a pang of guilt. Perhaps it's because of me. I, as his master, haven't fulfilled my responsibilities. I was never there for him in times of danger. Kushina interrupted Minato. What's it to you? Why insist on taking responsibility? Kakashi was the Jonin leading the team back then. And after the war started, you were the busiest person there, running around, rescuing this and that, but instead of gratitude, you were taken out on by that ungrateful wretch. Minato knew this, but he still couldn't help blaming himself. Kushinara, I do bear undeniable responsibility for Obito's problems. I failed to raise him properly. If you must blame someone, blame me. Kushina's heart softened instantly. You're just trying to take the blame so I can't bring myself to do it. Don't worry, I don't intend to kill Obito. It's because he has such a good teacher like you. Minato immediately laughed. Then, Kushina, can you forgive Obito? Kushina's eyes were somewhat lost. Logically speaking, I don't intend to forgive him. He knows what he's done, and he can't even forgive himself. Besides, if things continue along the original trajectory, even if Obito is a good kid now, he might turn evil in the future and threaten our lives. Minato, this is something I absolutely cannot allow to happen, so I've actually thought that rather than waiting for that future, I should strike first. Kakashi Minato was sweating profusely. Was this how Kushina handled things? It's simple and straightforward, but you can't find fault with it. But, after all, Obito has been through so much, he has changed. Kushina thought for a moment. He has experienced darkness and emerged from it. In this life, he shouldn't do something like killing his mentor again, so the danger is much less. Plus, I just beat him up, so I've vented most of my anger. And those things didn't actually happen to me, so. Minato and Kakashi looked at Kushina with expectant expressions. Kushina said angrily, "Why are you all staring at me like that? I'm telling you, I did it simply because I didn't want to disrupt the team's harmony. Otherwise, I would have killed Obito right now, but the consequence would be. This time, it's that little girl named Rin who's shouting that she wants to create a world with Obito. Rin is so adorable, even I can't help but like her, so I'm only letting Obito go for her sake." Minato scratched his head. Haha, is that so? Kushina smiled sweetly at Minato. That's true, but Ju Xing Nai Shun Jian Bian Sei, Hen Hen Zo La Shui Menji Quan. Yihu Bu Zun Shuan Qing La. Jiao Ni Hu Luan Shuan Qing. Jiao Ni Hu Luan Shuan Qing. Ju Wei Ji Luan Shi Ni Ming Ming Si Bula. In the midst of the beating, Kushina suddenly hugged Minato and burst into tears. Minato gently embraced Kushina, letting her nestle in his arms and comforting her. "Don't worry, I'll definitely protect you this time." Kakashi watched from the sidelines, feeling as if he had suddenly suffered 100 points of damage to his heart. So everyone in the team is showing off their love, and he's the only single guy? Episode 48 Lin's feelings. On the other side, Dai Tu rested his head on Lin's knees, letting the blood seeping from the wound on his face flow down. Lin felt a pang of heartache and wanted to wipe it away, but remembering that this was Obito atoning for his sins and trying to lessen his guilt, she held back. Rin said softly, "Obito, this is meaningless. We still have a mission to carry out outside the village today. Punishing ourselves this way won't help the team." Obito chuckled self-deprecatingly, "Maybe so. I always mess things up. Even though I've corrected my bad habit of being late, I still keep causing you guys trouble." Then, noticing that Lin was feeling quite down, he wanted to cheer her up, so he asked, "Lin, was what you just did a confession?" Lin blushed slightly when asked this question, but did not deny it. "If you say so, then so be it." Obito laughed heartily. "Rin, the thing I regretted most in my past life was that I never confessed my feelings to you before I died. I never imagined that in this life you would confess to me first. Right now, I'm the happiest person in the whole world." However, Rin didn't seem very happy. Instead, she looked at Obito with concern, her tone tinged with anxiety. "Obito, is this the last time?" Obito's heart skipped a beat, then he explained, "Rin, I actually know that Kushina is a kind-hearted person. She just has a fiery temper, but she won't kill me." Lin shook her head, looked up at the sky, and said calmly, "Obito, do you know, I'm just an ordinary girl too. I also dream that one day a boy will appear in my life, cherish me, and give me the whole world. I was lucky because that boy really appeared. Although he always seemed unable to take care of himself and needed my attention, appearing rather clumsy, he cherished me immensely. So much so that if he lost me in the future, he would even be willing to turn against the entire world." Obito felt a sharp blow to his heart. Lin smiled faintly and continued, "Obito, when I heard that you boldly declared war on the 5 great nations at the 5 Cage Summit in order to create a world with me, even though I knew it was wrong, I still thought you were so cool at that moment. Because you're just like the perfect crush we girls secretly talk about, mysterious and powerful, handsome and considerate, willing to give everything for the girl you love. Someone like that should only exist in dreams, but you actually appeared, truly by my side. Thinking about it that way, I'm really a lucky girl." Obito's heart was filled with a kaleidoscope of emotions. In his past life, when he was young, didn't he also dream of defeating Kakashi, who was the strongest in his mind at the time, and appearing in front of Rin in a super cool and powerful manner, winning Rin's heart? Later, he really did it. He became very powerful, but by then, Lin was dead, and his heart was filled with a huge emptiness. What was the point of being strong then? He wished nothing had changed, that he hadn't awakened the dual divine might kaleidoscope, and that Lin would still be alive. However, everything had changed, and the world had become hell. He didn't even want Lin to continue living in such a hell. Rin continued, "Obito, I said this years ago. I've known since I was very young that I'm just an ordinary girl. But the more ordinary I am, the stronger I must be. I want to become a powerful female ninja like Tsunade. But That's not easy to do, which is why I was drawn to Kakashi. He truly embodies the kind of powerful figure I've always dreamed of, and that's what attracts me. But then I realized I'd overlooked you. Kakashi is like the sun in the sky, everything about him is so perfect, but I can only look up to him in awe. On the contrary, it's you. Even if you're not so dazzling, you're sunny and cheerful, and you never give up no matter what you do. You're clearly a bit of a fool, but you manage to fall down again and again, and get up again and again. The spirit you possess is what I aspire to. It encourages me and makes me stronger. In fact, from that time on, you became my support, a ray of light in my world. So, I unconsciously want to become your support, to become the light in your world. Later, you were reborn from the future, possessing even greater strength, perhaps even more dazzling than Kakashi. And so, the sunny, cheerful boy and the mysterious, powerful boy gradually merged, becoming you as you are now. Perhaps it was from that moment that I fell for them. A hint of shyness gradually crept into Lin's voice. She had been slowly revealing her feelings to the one she loved. But at the same time, her tone became increasingly firm. Obito, you've told me more than once that I don't need to worry, that you'll protect me. Now I'll ask you one more time, can you really do it? Without a second thought, Obito said, I swear, I'll do it even if it kills me. Rin's tears flowed, and she placed her finger between Obito's lips, silencing him. Obito, perhaps you've faced death countless times, and death is no longer so terrifying to you. But protecting me is a promise you can't keep after you die, Obito. I don't want you to die. Obito was stunned. He had never imagined that Rin would think this way. At this moment, he suddenly realized that he carried a heavy responsibility. Rin continued, Obito, in your past life, why did you dislike Kakashi so much? Why did you fight with him so many times? Obito pondered, because of Rin, I'm afraid Kakashi will leave me, and take you with him, disappearing from my world. Rin said with tears in her eyes, so, Obito, I'm just like you were in your past life. I'm also afraid that one day you'll disappear. Obito shuddered, no, never. Lin, however, questioned, are you really sure you don't? But you've expressed suicidal thoughts to me more than once, revealing that you'd disregard your own life and death for all sorts of reasons. Lin's voice began to tremble. I'm very scared. I'm afraid you'll leave, leaving me all alone. Obito stood frozen in place. He finally understood why Rin had reacted so strongly today. It wasn't because he had been beaten up by Kushina, but because of the indifferent attitude towards life and death he had displayed when Kushina was punishing him. Obito involuntarily closed his eyes. His life revolved entirely around Lin, yet it wasn't solely about her. This seemed to be a perplexing question for the world. If Kushina, the eldest sister, appeared before him right now and demanded that he atone with his death, could he say no? He seems unable to. Episode 49, Letting Go, Reconciliation. Thinking of this, Obito gave a wry smile. I'm sorry, Lin. I still can't protect you. I want to promise you I won't try to take my own life again, and I will always protect you. But I did too many wrong things in my past life. Facing those I feel guilty towards, I still have to leave the choice of my life or death to them. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Rin shook her head. No, Obito, you don't need to apologize because I've already seen it. I know your feelings. I won't be so selfish, nor should I. I don't want to force you to give up your atonement for my sake. But, Obito, I told you a long time ago, whatever happens, we'll face it together. Next time something like this happens, let me share your sins. Don't abandon me, okay? Obito felt a warmth in his heart, and he had an impulse to agree immediately. But could he bear to watch Rin take half the damage from Kushina's iron fist? That's simply impossible. Thinking of this, Obito couldn't help but get a little annoyed and asked. So, Rin, what will you do if Madara puts the 3 tails inside you again? Lin chuckled. Of course I'd go to Master's wife. Obito, didn't you say that if I had gone back to Master's wife back then, my problem would have been perfectly solved? If Kirigakure doesn't mind aiding the enemy, I wouldn't mind accepting this generous gift. Obito shook his head and said seriously, what if Master's wife isn't here? What if the situation is really urgent? Lin was instantly rendered speechless by the rebuttal. Obito sat up, patted Rin's head, and laughed. Look at you, you idiot. In this situation, why don't you think about me? I'd be the saddest if you died, but I think you'll still make the same choice as in your past life, sacrifice yourself to protect the village. Lin was momentarily confused. She didn't know what to choose. Perhaps only when she actually encountered a similar situation would she understand, but she would rather never encounter such a thing in her entire life. Then, she gave a helpless smile. Obito, I understand what you mean. You're an idiot, and I'm an idiot too. We really are, both big idiots. Obito stretched and said, so, let's stop thinking about life and death. I pondered this topic for a long time in my past life and still couldn't figure it out. Only by truly facing it will we know the answer. Right now, we should cherish this rare peaceful life we have. Rin suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, and seeing Obito's bruised and swollen face, she finally smiled through her tears. Obito, you're in such a sorry state. How can you possibly protect this peaceful life? Obito thought for a moment, then grabbed Rin's hand and placed it on his face. Rin, you're right. It's pointless for me to hurt myself to atone for my sins. The damage has already been done. We can only think about how to make amends, not how to make ourselves look like neither human nor ghost. That won't solve anything, so, please heal me. Only after I recover can I be of greater use. Lin smiled and nodded, then began to unleash her medical ninjutsu. Because Obito's injuries were mostly superficial, although they looked serious, they healed quickly. As the green chakra light flickered, Obito's injuries gradually improved. Just as things were almost finished, Minato teleported back with Kushina and Kakashi. The three of them looked at Dai and Rin with strange expressions. Kakashi walked over first and shrugged. Obito, I've already told Minato-sensei and Kushina-sensei a lot of information according to your wishes. I can't control what they think, so good luck to you. Obito nodded and looked at Minato and his wife. He said calmly, I'm sorry, teacher and big sister, you already know why I feel guilty, right? Perhaps your feelings aren't deep enough. After all, you didn't experience those things firsthand, but everything is etched in my heart, vivid in my memory. The more I recall it, the more I feel, how could I have been such a beast? So, whatever you do to me, beat me, scold me, even kill me, it doesn't matter. I will face it all calmly. Kushina was somewhat surprised. Oh, you've adjusted so quickly and aren't weak anymore. Is it because of that little girl, Rin? Obito nodded and smiled at Rin. She gave me a lot of courage. At that moment, Rin suddenly rushed forward, standing in front of Obito, her eyes resolute. Master, mistress, I know Obito is unforgivable, but I can no longer stand by and watch him suffer alone. If you still harbor any resentment, I will bear it with him. Kushina, feigning anger, walked up to Rin. You said it yourself, the B*********************** D things Obito did. I can't help but want to punch him just thinking about them. Are you really going to take the blame for him? Lin was starting to feel scared, her whole body trembling, but her gaze was resolute, and she wouldn't back down an inch. Yes, master's wife, if beating me will vent your anger, then go ahead and beat me. Kushina couldn't help but punch Rin in the head. Although Rin was prepared, she was still so frightened that she closed her eyes. However, the fist stopped at the last moment and turned into a pat. Kushina gently patted Rin's head. Although I'm very unhappy with Obito's behavior, considering he called me big sister, and also because I don't want to hurt such a lovely Rin, I'll let him off the hook. Rin breathed a sigh of relief, her eyes filled with tears, and bowed deeply. Thank you, big sister. I really want to say sorry to you on Obito's behalf. Kushina chuckled. Alright, Rin, don't imitate that brat. Promise me you'll keep an eye on Obito and don't let him cause any more trouble, understand? Lin nodded. Don't worry, madam, I'll keep an eye on him. Kushina sighed. I can't help but envy Obito. He actually has such a cute girl like you who's in love with him. Lin blushed instantly and whispered, No, master's wife, we're not like that. But as she spoke, her voice became weak, barely audible. Kushina teased, What, am I hallucinating? Who said they wanted to sleep with that idiot? Who said they wanted to be his girlfriend? Smoke began to rise from Lin's head. Kushina squatted down and touched Rin's face. Alright, Minato and I started dating quite early too, so I have no right to criticize you. But I still want to remind you, girls, when you're out and about, you must learn to protect yourselves, lest you get taken advantage of by some ungrateful B**************************. D. Go on with the mission. Remember to eat all the bento boxes I made. Everyone gets one, but no waste. And remember to return safely. Episode 50 The Essence of a Ninja. Obito stepped forward and said, I promise. Kushina snorted. That's more like it. Don't let it turn out like the future you described, where Kakashi is all alone in the end. Otherwise, he won't even have enough money to buy flowers. Kakashi was sweating profusely, but then he remembered what Obito had said about the future. He would have to visit his father, Minato-sensei, Kushina-sensei's wife, Rin, and then Obito. He really would have to buy a lot of flowers. At this moment, seeing that everyone was getting along well, Minato smiled and stepped forward, calling out, Squad 7, assemble here. In an instant, Obito, Kakashi, and Rin arrived at Minato's side. Minato's expression was serious. Since we've already wasted a lot of time, I'll use the Flying Thunder God technique to help you catch up for a while, but this isn't a regular method, and it won't happen again. The three nodded, then each shouldered their bags. Minato placed his hand on each of them, and the next moment, they vanished from the spot. Shujin Village is a small village nestled against the mountains and beside a river. The figures of the Watergate team slowly appeared. After finding the client, who was also the village chief, and learning more about the situation, everyone gradually understood what was going on. A band of mountain bandits entrenched themselves deep in the mountains, frequently plundering, burning, and killing, committing all sorts of atrocities. The nearby villages were ravaged, especially Shujin Village, which was ransacked time and time again, leaving the villagers in dire straits. That's why they united and entrusted the village chief to issue a mission to Konoha. This was indeed just a very simple task of eliminating bandits, and it didn't involve any ninjas. Reassured, Minato gave the instructions. Obito, Kakashi, Rin, follow the clues provided by the villagers up the mountain, find the bandits' hideout, and kill them all. Don't let a single one escape. The three replied solemnly, understood. The four then vanished in an instant and began searching for the bandits' hiding place. Soon, the four of them discovered a small stronghold built by bandits deep in the mountains. Having found his target, Minato remained where he was and said to the three, "Now it's up to you to see how you perform. I won't intervene unless it's a critical moment." The three nodded, closed their eyes, and began to perceive their surroundings. Although none of them were professional sensory ninjas, a group of ordinary mountain bandits were almost unable to effectively conceal their presence, so sensing them was not difficult. Soon, Obito opened his eyes. There are some bandits around the stronghold, but most of the others are concentrated inside. After hesitating for a moment, Obito looked at Rin. Rin, most of the people in the stronghold are old, young, sick, or disabled. You and Kakashi can handle them. As for the rest, I'll take care of the able-bodied bandits who are patrolling the surrounding area. Rin was taken aback, somewhat unconvinced. Obito, I'm not so bad as to be unable to defeat a group of bandits. Don't assign me such an easy task. Obito laughed. No, it's not because I think adult bandits are too difficult to deal with that I'm stopping you from handling them. It's because, among everyone here, you're the only one who hasn't experienced a real massacre. You need to experience it completely. Lin was still unconvinced. I've undergone stress training at the Ninja Academy, and I've executed death row inmates. I've seen blood. Don't treat me like a child. Obito said seriously. Rin, ordinary killing and massacre are not the same thing. As a qualified ninja, you can attack the enemy without hesitation. I don't deny that, but... Obito's tone shifted. As I just said, that bandit stronghold is mostly populated by old people and children. They might not have committed many crimes. Given that, can you still proceed? Lin was stunned. Only then did she realize the seriousness of the problem. Are we going to kill everyone? The old and the young, all of them? But aren't they innocent, just as you say? Obito said, they may be innocent. Even those bandits who plunder. How many of them are forced by the harsh realities of the world to survive? Their motives for committing evil might simply be to provide their wives and children with a full meal. But, since we've enjoyed the looted food and money, we naturally have to pay a corresponding price, especially. Obito looked at Kakashi, signaling him to explain the situation. Kakashi had carried out similar missions more than once or twice, so he understood Obito's meaning and calmly said, what Obito is saying is that the mission request states to clear out the mountain bandits and leave no future trouble. As ninjas, we must strictly carry it out. Lin frowned. But if we just clear out the able-bodied bandits and leave behind the elderly and children who have little ability to resist, wouldn't that solve the problem? Obito shook his head. Old people can adopt new children, and the children will continue to grow up. When we kill able-bodied mountain bandits, it's equivalent to killing their family members. That's how hatred arises. What will those bandit children do more than a decade later? Perhaps, driven by hatred, they will pick up their father's knives again, becoming even more cold-blooded and even self-righteous in their attacks on the innocent villagers. Hatred will continue to be passed on, endlessly. Lin understood. It wasn't that she wasn't smart, she just didn't want to accept it. At this moment, she finally understood the cruelty of the world that Obito had described. However, Obito glanced at Minato-sensei beside him and changed the subject. Rin, this is the lesson Konoha will teach you. While that's true in principle, there's an even more fundamental reason why we, as ninjas, have this. Rin was taken aback. What kind of trouble was Obito up to now? Obito continued, a ninja's main job is to take money and solve problems for others, regardless of right or wrong. We've taken the money from those villagers, so no matter what, we have to solve their problems. Otherwise, we'll break our principles and damage the village's image. Perhaps one day, things will turn around. If those bandits also come to Konoha for a request, and Konoha actually agrees, then we'll still have to satisfy their demands. And perhaps then, we'll really have to harm the innocent villagers. This is the true essence of the ninja world. Rin's eyes flashed frantically, desperately signaling to Obito to stop talking. Here we go again. Obito is spouting those cruel truths again. What he said might be true, but Minato-sensei was watching from the sidelines. As expected, Minato Namikaze frowned. Obito, Konoha will not accept a commission from these bandits. Every mission undergoes strict vetting to ensure we are on the side of justice. Obito smiled at Minato. Minato-sensei, are you sure? How about we change the mission? How about causing trouble in Sanagakure or Kumogakure? Konoha is ordering the massacre of civilians to create panic? Are you sure the village wouldn't issue such an order? If it did, is such a mission truly just? Episode 51 The truth behind Obito's blame on Minato. Minato was speechless. However, after thinking about it for a while, he smiled calmly. Obito, you're right. Everyone's so-called justice is ultimately based on self-interest. Ninjas are merely tools for carrying out missions. Missions themselves are neither inherently just nor unjust. But, Minato paused, his eyes filled with determination. We must still uphold Konoha's justice. Shuiman pointed to the village in the distance. To take the most extreme example, even if Konoha were this mountain stronghold, we would still protect it because we are also members of this stronghold. Children who grew up here. We have long been integrated with it. Our fates are intertwined, aren't they? Obito remarked. Minato-sensei, you are kind, but not pedantic. This perspective perfectly explains the relationship between the village and us. It's actually quite convincing. Yes, instead of spouting grand theories and talking about the ninja world, let's talk about something practical. We are children raised by Konoha, and it's only right that we repay Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi did the right thing, Minato-sensei. You truly were the best choice for the fourth Hokage. Minato's face darkened. Obito, now that your true nature has been revealed, are you even going to stop pretending? That's the third Hokage. You should at least show him some respect. Obito sighed. Minato-sensei, I know it was wrong of me to take my anger out on you in my past life, but Kakashi didn't tell you the specific reasons, did he? Because he doesn't know either. Minato paused, then frowned and asked, Obito, what exactly happened? Obito continued, when I learned that Rin had been kidnapped by Kirigakure and that Kakashi had gone to rescue her, I was frantic. I ran like the wind from near the mountain graveyard, along the border of the Land of Fire, almost crossing half of the Land of Fire, before finally reaching the coast near the heart of Kirigakure. There, I witnessed Kakashi kill Rin with Chidori. If I had arrived just a few moments earlier, I could have prevented this tragedy. Obito's breathing quickened. That location was clearly closer to Konoha, and Konoha received the news much earlier than me, yet I almost made it there. Why didn't anyone from Konoha come to reinforce us? What am I supposed to think? While running along the road, I kept checking. Minato-sensei, haven't you arrived yet? Why did I need to check? Because with your speed, you could get there much faster than me, but in the end, you still didn't show up. Obito smiled wryly. That's why I took my anger out on you back then. Of course, I know you might not have received the intelligence, or you might be on some crucial mission and simply couldn't spare the time. But regardless, what was Konoha doing at this time? And what role did Hiruzen Sarutobi play? Obito grew angrier the more he spoke. At that time, the Third Shinobi World War was almost over. Did he secretly reach some agreement with Kiri in the name of peace? Which is why he abandoned Rin and Kakashi. That's why Kakashi was the only one who went to rescue them. This is utterly disheartening. My name was inscribed on the memorial tablet, and then our team was abandoned by the higher-ups. I can't help but wonder, why should Lin's sacrifice be exchanged for this hypocritical peace? This village doesn't deserve it. Obito's words made Minato frown. He knew the location of the mountain graveyard, which was close to the Land of Earth, but separated from the Land of Water by most of the Land of Fire. If Obito could travel from the mountain graveyard to the heart of Kirigakure, there's no reason why the Konoha ninja couldn't get there in time. The fact that only Kakashi went to the rescue speaks volumes. There might really be something fishy going on. Minato scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Obito, I don't know what happened in the future either. No wonder I stopped Kakashi from killing you during the Fourth Shinobi World War, as you mentioned. Maybe I really did have some unspeakable guilt back then. Ha ha ha, the third Hokage has really done some chilling things in the name of peace. Obito nodded. Hiruzen Sarutobi's chilling methods are not limited to just one or two. leaving aside the suicide of Hatake Tsukumo. Later, when the delegation from the Land of Lightning came to Konoha to sign a peace treaty, they suddenly launched an attack on Konoha's territory, kidnapping the young princess of the Hyuga clan, who was then killed on the spot by Hyuga Hiyashi, who arrived at the scene. As a result, Kumakuya seized on this matter and turned the tables, demanding that the third Hokage hand over the murderer. Guess what Hiruzen Sarutobi did? For the sake of peace and to avoid war with Kumogakure, he truly swallowed his pride and agreed to Kumogakure's demands, handing over Hyuga Hiyashi. That's the head of the Hyuga clan. If it weren't for Hiyashi's younger brother, Hyuga Hazashi, taking the blame, Konoha's actions would have been a complete disaster, a truly disheartening loss. Minato Namikaze's expression changed, his fists clenched, and a hint of anger surfaced. If Kumogakure demands the handover of people, Konoha will hand them over. Today they can hand over the Hyuga clan leader, tomorrow will they hand over the Uchiha clan leader, and the day after tomorrow there's Akamichi, Yamanaka, Nara. The 3 generations of officials are confused. This is something that should never be compromised under any circumstances. What era were we talking about? Obito smiled wryly. After the Nine Tails rampage. So I bear some responsibility for this. Konoha suffered immense damage at the time, and you, Minato-sensei, died too. Given the third Hokage's weak character, perhaps he truly lacked the courage to wage war against Kumogakure. Minato shook his head. I see. Perhaps the third Hokage is no longer suitable to be Hokage. If I were Hokage and Kumogakure dared to do this, I would make them understand what the price is. Obito sighed. It's a pity that Minato-sensei was already dead by then. If you were here, everything would have been different. Obito raised his head and said firmly, Minato-sensei, in this life I will do my best to make up for the mistakes I made. I've already done my job to protect Rin and Kakashi. You can now focus on making a name for yourself without any distractions. Please, you must become the 4th Hokage. Only when you're in that position can Konoha recover. Minato gave a confident smile. Alright, Obito, I promise you, I will do my best to become Hokage. That's my dream too. Kakashi, standing to the side with a deadpan expression, said, Hey, who needs your protection? Obito snorted. A guy who couldn't even protect Rin has no right to speak. Kakashi grew increasingly annoyed. I've already said this hasn't happened yet. Stop trying to pin baseless accusations on me. Seeing that the two were about to start arguing again, Lin immediately stepped in to stop them. Alright, stop arguing, we're still on a mission. Episode 52 helping Lin adapt to killing. Everyone calmed down, and Obito looked at Rin and said, Then let's proceed according to the original plan. Rin, this is mainly for you. You must get used to this kind of ninja killing, which I don't know if it can be considered righteous. Lin was still feeling a little uncomfortable, but when she remembered what Minato-sensei had said, she agreed with him. Konoha gave birth to her, raised her, and let her grow up in peace. She should indeed consider things from the village's perspective. So she nodded and said seriously, Don't worry, I will carry out the mission well. And so, the 3 of them exchanged a glance, then split up and went their separate ways. A one-sided massacre has begun. There wasn't a single ninja among this group of bandits. Don't underestimate Obito and his gang just because they're young. They're still an elite squad. Killing ordinary people who aren't ninjas is like killing chickens for them. In truth, this group of bandits probably couldn't even withstand a senior ninja academy student. Therefore, once Obito began his operation, he skillfully reaped the lives of one bandit after another without even prompting anyone to issue a warning. As he sensed the number of enemies around him dwindling until they were gone, Obito wiped the blood off his kunai and headed towards the stronghold. When he entered the village, there were hardly any living people left, and Kakashi and Rin had basically finished their work. For a moment, the surroundings were filled with a thick, pungent smell of blood. Looking at the corpses lying on the ground, especially the elderly, women, and children among them, whose almost all fatal wounds were knife wounds, Obito couldn't help but shake his head. Of the 3-person team, only Kakashi liked to use a knife. As expected, Rin still couldn't easily cross the threshold of slaughtering women and children. So, how is Lin doing now? Sensing Rin's presence, Obito quickly rushed over. At this moment, Lin was holding a kunai, a type of halberd, facing a mother and daughter who were trembling and huddled together. The mother, tears streaming down her face, pleaded, Please spare us. We didn't do anything. Even if you won't spare me, please spare my daughter's life. She truly knew nothing, absolutely nothing. Lin stood frozen in place, hesitant, reluctant, yet determined. But in the end, a complex mix of emotions, including hesitation, prevented her from thrusting the kunai into the mother and daughter, even as she drew closer. Obito sighed, walked over to Rin, and took her hand that was holding the weapon. Rin only relaxed when she sensed Obito's arrival. She lowered her head, somewhat blaming herself for her weakness. I'm sorry, Obito, I still can't make a move. Obito thought for a moment, then looked at the mother and daughter and said, perhaps you really haven't done anything, and you are truly innocent, but since you enjoy the benefits gained from plundering others, you must pay the corresponding price. Obito held Rin's hand and moved. Rin suddenly understood what Obito wanted to do. Instead of resisting, she gave herself to Obito wholeheartedly. And so, Obito led her into a dance with exquisite beauty and speed. In the instant the mother and daughter were filled with terror and fear, Rin's kunai precisely severed their throats. The mother collapsed to the ground in disbelief, blood gushing from her neck. Her eyes were fixed intently on Obito and Rin, as if to say, if I have the chance, even if it means going to hell, I'll drag you down with me. After Obito finished doing all this, he chuckled softly and released Rin's hand. Rin could no longer hold onto the kunai and it fell to the ground. She said bitterly, I really killed them, sigh. Obito didn't say anything, but walked up to the mother and daughter and covered their eyes. At the last moment, he said calmly to his mother, sorry, you want to drag me to hell, but I've already been there. Perhaps the problem isn't with you, but with the world. Obito stood up again and said to Rin, let's go. I've covered their eyes so they can no longer see this ugly world. That's my last act of mercy. Rin stood frozen in place, muttering to herself, so, this is a ninja. Obito sighed, yes, that's what ninjas are like. Also, Rin, I have a lesson every ninja must learn. Rin, her eyes vacant, said, Obito, you speak. Obito looked at the fallen male corpse on the ground and said, Rin, remember to check and finish off any mistakes in the future, otherwise, it will have serious consequences. The man shuddered. He knew he had been exposed and had to act now, or he would lose even his last chance to strike. Suddenly, he sprang up and slashed at Rin with his knife, completely ignoring the blood draining from his abdomen. Just now, this despicable female ninja almost killed him, and together with the male ninja, she killed his wife and daughter. He will use his last breath to take revenge. However, the sword strike stopped mid-air because a flash of light appeared behind him as well. His body was severed in two, and blood spurted out, staining everything around him red. Kakashi appeared, sword in hand, half his body submerged in crimson blood. He said calmly, so this guy isn't quite dead yet. Although he's not a ninja, this kind of sneak attack can still be dangerous. We'd better be careful. Obito snorted coldly. That's why we must finish them off properly. In my past life, I was almost crushed to death by a boulder at Kanabai Bridge. That was the consequence of us not finishing them off properly. Kakashi's eyes flashed slightly. This was a lesson learned the hard way. He nodded. I will remember this. Then, he turned his back and walked towards the village entrance. Daito, are you done on your end? Once you're done, we can go back to Shujin village to get the mission confirmation. Rin looked at Kakashi's indifference, as if life was worthless in his eyes, and suddenly felt a little scared. Obito held Rin's hand. Don't worry, that guy is only cold to outsiders. He's really good to you. In our past life, I always threw away the flowers he gave you, and he kept giving them to you and I kept throwing them away. I don't even know how many he threw away. Obito's interruption cheered Rin up considerably, and she couldn't help but chuckle. Obito, Kakashi gave me flowers, which was really nice, so why did you throw them away? Obito snorted. He was too useless back then, he wouldn't give you flowers. Rin was speechless for a moment, then took Obito's hand and smiled bravely. Obito, I know you're trying to distract me, thank you, but I'm not as fragile as you think. Let's go. And so, the three of them left the village, and the surrounding area gradually fell silent as the life force of the people disappeared. Minato Namikaze instantly appeared in front of them, smiling with satisfaction. Our team completed this mission perfectly on our first attempt. You all did an excellent job. Episode 53. Doing nothing is the greatest help I can give to the Uchiha clan. Minato glanced at Obito, who remained calm, and Kakashi, who showed no change in expression, and then at Rin, who had also calmed down. Suddenly, he felt that with their team's composition, completing a C-rank mission wasn't anything to be surprised about. His teammates are all anything but normal. A genius who became a genin at 5, a chunin at 6, and will be promoted to jonin at 12. An old silver coin who was a ninja world schemer for over 10 years and then reborn. And Rin who can completely control this old silver coin. This combination, along with him, young Minato, makes them seem destined to either save the world or destroy it in the future. Thinking about this, Minato couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He doubted whether he could really lead Team 7 effectively. He could only sigh and say, "Let's go. We'll explain the situation to the villagers of Shujin village, and then we can go back to the village. I won't use the flying thunder god technique on the way back to the village. We'll stay out overnight to get used to wilderness survival." The three nodded and immediately went down the mountain. When the villagers saw the three little ones covered in blood, they couldn't help but show fear and apprehension. But upon hearing that the bandits had been eliminated, they breathed a sigh of relief and looked relieved. The village chief signed the letter of authorization with a satisfactory evaluation, and the mission was considered successfully completed. The Watergate crew began their return voyage. On the return journey, Lin asked curiously, "These bandits have been bothering the villagers for quite some time now, haven't they? Why didn't you issue a mission sooner? That way, they wouldn't have to endure this long-term torment of raiding." Obito explained, "It's simple, because they're poor. Poverty is a disease of the world, incurable. The money earned from issuing a sea-level mission is often enough to support the entire village for a long time. This is not an easy decision to make. After all, most poor people can't even afford medical care, so they can only drag it out, and keep dragging it out until their whole bodies start to rot. Only in situations like those involving bandits, where the entire village feels fear, could someone be so determined to unite and risk everything to contribute this sum of money." Lin was immediately taken aback. She subconsciously calculated the rewards for ninjas carrying out missions and suddenly realized that it wasn't cheap at all. A D-level mission can cost anywhere from 5,000 to tens of thousands of taels of silver, while a C-level mission can cost anywhere from tens of thousands to 100,000 taels. That's no small sum. Even my family can't easily come up with that much money. Lin comes from an ordinary family, so she understands all too well just how expensive it is to post a task. She couldn't help but wonder, why hadn't she felt anything before? Perhaps it's because there are many errand-running missions in Konoha village to find cats and dogs. Obito saw through Rin's thoughts and sneered, "Which villager in Konoha who can afford a mission isn't wealthy? We've only been to the real slums twice, and those were both missions funded by the higher-ups, like clearing sewers. Those lost cats and dogs probably eat better than those villagers we just saw. Their lives might even be more valuable than all of theirs combined." Rin immediately fell silent. Obito always liked to lecture her and tell her cruel truths. Why should a little girl like her know so much? HMPH, doesn't he know how to lie to her or coax her? Obito is such a blockhead. Seeing this, Minato awkwardly raised his hand. "Let's not discuss such serious and profound topics. Can't we think about where we'll stay tonight?" This statement finally captured everyone's attention. Minato pulled out a map, and everyone immediately crowded around it out of curiosity. After some debate, they finally settled on a location on the map. Afterwards, everyone continued on their way and finally arrived at their destination before it got completely dark. Watergate found a flat spot. "Let's spend the night here. By the way, during missions, open flames are not allowed in the field to prevent detection. But we're still within the land of fire, and our mission is complete, so the requirements aren't as strict. Tonight, we can enjoy the campfire." The three children nodded, and then Rin and Kakashi both looked at Obito. Obito slapped his forehead. He had almost forgotten about it. He immediately took out 2 sealing scrolls and unsealed them. Bang! Immediately afterwards, 2 large tents and various daily necessities appeared, along with food such as fish prepared by Kakashi and rice balls wrapped by Rin. Minato had just taken Kushina's bento out of his backpack when he saw this scene. He stood there stunned, then asked somewhat awkwardly, "Hey, you guys have gone too far. Using such a strategic level sealing scroll to store supplies? Are you out on a mission or on a picnic?" Kakashi helplessly spread his hands. "Actually, that's what I thought too, but Obito insisted on it." Minato couldn't help but look at Obito. Obito chuckled. "Anyway, I've already become an elder of the Uchiha clan, so I can abuse my power. If they give me things, I might as well take them." "What? An elder of the Uchiha clan? When did this happen?" Minato was shocked. The Uchiha were the most powerful clan in Konoha, and their elders were not positions that just anyone could hold. Obito looked at Kakashi. "Kakashi, didn't you tell Minato-sensei about this?" Kakashi coughed lightly. "Compared to your other intelligence, this matter is insignificant. Time was of the essence, so I tried to only mention the important points." Minato snapped out of his daze, recalling the terrifying stories Kakashi had told him, and awkwardly said, "It seems. It really is true." Seeing this, Obito explained, "When Clan Chief Fugaku chatted with me, he discovered that I also had the Mangekyou Sharingan, so I naturally became an elder. As an elder of the Uchiha clan, what's wrong with enjoying myself? Besides, I didn't take these things for free. I gave the Uchiha clan enough benefits, so taking a little something from them is perfectly justifiable. Enough benefits? Rin asked curiously. Obito, what benefits did you give the Uchiha clan? Obito chuckled. I gave Clan Chief Fugaku a lot of insightful advice. This is all part of my future understanding. In the ninja world, it's all S-rank intelligence. After a pause, Obito continued, this time with a hint of self-deprecation. Even if I did nothing at all, it would still be a huge help to the Uchiha. If they knew the truth, they'd really beg me to stay still and do nothing. Kakashi was taken aback, and asked, somewhat puzzled, why? Obito said, think about it carefully. During the Nine Tails rampage, when the villagers discovered that the Nine Tails was controlled by the Sharingan, who was most affected? Rin and Kakashi gasped in shock. It's the Uchiha. Episode 54 The Truth Behind the Uchiha Clan Massacre. Obito said, that's right. After the Nine Tails attack, the Uchiha clan's situation became extremely difficult. Not only were they banished to the most remote part of Konoha, but almost the entire clan was also placed under surveillance. They weren't prisoners, but they were treated like prisoners. How could the proud Uchiha clan endure this? So they began plotting a coup. Their relationship with the village became increasingly tense, and they ultimately met their demise. This time, everyone was surprised. The Uchiha clan was wiped out. They simply couldn't imagine that the Uchiha, the most powerful and invincible clan in Konoha, would one day face annihilation. Minato frowned and said, Konoha's approach is too radical. They didn't need to go this far. Sigh, wiping out the Uchiha, how many people will die? Obito denied it, saying, actually, apart from the complete extinction of the Uchiha clan, not a single person from Konoha died. Minato was stunned. How is that possible? Even with all of Konoha's elite forces combined, they couldn't possibly overwhelm the Uchiha. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the confidence to stage a coup. Obito kept everyone in suspense. I'll explain what happened later. First, guess who the real culprit was who caused the Uchiha's annihilation? Kakashi snorted and slowly uttered two words, Danzo. Obito laughed, that's right. Danzo's actions only exacerbated the conflict, and the third Hokage turned a blind eye to it. That's why the Uchiha clan ultimately met its end. Kakashi crossed his arms. I knew it would be like this. Minato then asked seriously, what exactly did Danzo do? Obito chuckled, what I mentioned above, driving the Uchiha clan to the most remote places and monitoring them, was all Danzo's suggestion. Besides that, Danzo also sabotaged Shisui, the Uchiha clan genius who rose to fame during the Third Shinobi World War, just like Minato. He stole Shisui's Mangekyou Sharingan, forcing Shisui into a dilemma between the village and his clan, ultimately forcing him to commit suicide. Everyone was taken aback. Kakashi couldn't help but ask, Obito, are you not the only one with the Mangekyou Sharingan? Obito shook his head. Clan Chief Fugaku also has these eyes. Furthermore, he added, there aren't many Uchiha with Mangekyou Sharingan yet, but after the Third Shinobi World War, it's like Mangekyou Sharingan are appearing one after another, as if they're free. Strictly speaking, in my past life, I actually awakened my Mangekyou Sharingan around that time as well. During that period, including the Fugaku clan head's pair, a total of 4 pairs of Uchiha Mangekyou Sharingan appeared. Lin's eyes widened. So many? These eyes are incredibly powerful. The Uchiha clan was truly formidable. How were they wiped out? Obito wore a thoughtful expression. Actually, such a situation is extremely rare in the entire family history. The last time the family had 4 pairs of kaleidoscopes simultaneously was when the entire family was on the verge of extinction due to internal strife and fighting. Therefore, I think this time will be no exception. The large-scale awakening of the Mangekyou Sharingan by the Uchiha clan can only mean one thing. The clan's fortune has come to an end, and they are beginning to burn themselves out in a final struggle. Everyone nodded as they recalled the Uchiha clan's eventual annihilation. Minato asked, so, besides Fugaku, you, and Shisui, who else in the future Uchiha clan will possess the Mangekyou Sharingan? Obito smiled. Minato-sensei, you should have seen that person before. You're fairly familiar with him. He's Uchiha Itachi. Itachi, I see. Minato suddenly realized. He naturally knew that Fugaku had a son, and as the son of the clan leader, it was normal for him to have such talent. However, Minato became puzzled. What Rin said earlier is actually correct. Every Mangekyou Sharingan user is a powerful individual. Legend has it that they even possess the power of gods. Such a powerful individual is not easy to deal with. Even disregarding you and Shisui who committed suicide, there are still Fugaku and Itachi's eyes. Under these circumstances, would the village dare to make a move? Aren't you afraid of suffering heavy casualties in the end and being coveted by other countries? Besides, I still don't understand how the village managed to defeat the Uchiha without losing a single member. The massacre of the Uchiha clan was incomprehensible to Minato. So many 3 Tomo Sharingan and 2 pairs of Mangekyou Sharingan, if they could become part of the village, what a terrifying fighting force that would be. Obito said self-deprecatingly, because the Uchiha were wiped out by their own people. Upon hearing Obito's tone, Rin immediately understood what was going on. I see. So, Obito, you're the mastermind behind the massacre of the Uchiha clan? Obito, embarrassed, said, Rin, I did participate in this, and I did indeed massacre a large number of members of the Uchiha police department, but this was not something I planned. I was just invited and did it on the spur of the moment. Minato was taken aback. He had initially thought Obito might be behind it, but it turned out he wasn't. Seeing the suspicious looks on everyone's faces, Obito slowly revealed the truth. The order to exterminate the Uchiha clan was given by Danzo, and Itachi received the order. Itachi felt he couldn't do it alone, so he invited me. And so, one night, I cooperated with Itachi to enter the Uchiha clan's territory and began a massacre. The entire Uchiha clan, regardless of age or gender, was wiped out. Not a single person was spared. Everyone fell silent. They had just experienced a massacre today, so they knew very well how many of those victims were innocent. Moreover, Konoha village was different from the bandit stronghold. There were likely many more innocent villagers among them. Rin was the one who felt it most deeply. Even towards Obito, she couldn't help but feel angry. Obito, how many of them are elderly people you've helped? How could you do that? Obito's eyes were deep. Rin, back then I escaped reality. The whole world seemed fake to me, so I did things without any burden. No, there's still a burden, and my heart aches too, but I keep telling myself, just this little bit of pain, just this little bit, endure it a little longer, and then I can create a world where everyone is happy. Lin calmed herself down slightly, then could only sigh helplessly, saying with distress, alas, the sins I need to atone for have increased. But then she became curious again. But Obito, why don't you feel as guilty towards the Uchiha as you do towards your teacher and his wife? How can you still take advantage of the Uchiha without feeling guilty? Obito chuckled, of course it's because, although I participated in the massacre, most of those killed were Uchiha elites, many of whom were radical members, the ones who wanted a coup. They had their reasons for dying, and they were all ninjas. As ninjas, they had to be prepared to be killed, so it wasn't a big burden for me to kill them. Although, there are certainly innocent victims, like a young girl who had already awakened the 3 Tomo power, who cried out, Itachi, save me, before she died. But at least, Lin, those elderly people you mentioned, as well as many children, including newborns and other defenseless civilians, weren't killed by me. Itachi did it. Episode 55 The Truth Behind the Extermination of the Clan. Lin breathed a sigh of relief. She could accept Obito killing powerful individuals, but she would also be troubled if he targeted innocent villagers. Kakashi couldn't help but sneer, that Itachi, he's truly utterly depraved. Minato expressed some sympathy. I think he was in a lot of pain too. You can tell from his mission to carry out Danzo's orders. He loved the village, but for its sake, he had to take action against his own people. I can't even imagine the mental pressure he had to endure, but both he and Danzo are too extreme in their thinking. Obito nodded. Itachi, indeed, lived in pain from the night of the massacre until the day he died. Even I could feel his exhaustion. To be honest, I'm not qualified to judge Itachi, because my thinking was also extreme in my past life. Then, Obito turned to Kakashi. Actually, if your mindset hasn't changed yet, well, you haven't. After all, according to your 5-year-old thinking, Itachi perfectly carried out the mission assigned by the Konoha higher-ups, so how can you say he was wrong? Kakashi suddenly felt a chill of fear. Thankfully, he hadn't turned into someone like Itachi. Rin then came to her senses. So, Obito, you single-handedly defeated the Uchiha elites that Minato-sensei said the entire Hidden Leaf village combined couldn't easily handle? Her eyes were bright, and there was a hint of admiration in them. Obito, somewhat embarrassed, said, Itachi also deserves some credit. The Mangekyou Sharingan has an extremely strong suppressive effect against the 3 Tomo Sharingan. Attacking from within the same clan is the most lethal. The Uchiha's most troublesome genjutsu becomes ineffective against the Mangekyou. And in addition, Obito paused for a moment and looked at Minato. Minato-sensei, my Mangekyou Sharingan is a space-time ninjutsu. As someone who also possesses space-time ninjutsu, you should know how quickly this technique can kill ninjas weaker than yourself. Minato Namikaze pondered for a moment and said, indeed, as long as their reaction isn't faster than mine, they don't have any good means of self-preservation, and they don't understand my abilities well enough to react in time, then killing them is a matter of one move. The difference between Jonin and Genin isn't that significant. Obito chuckled, my situation was similar. Even Minato-sensei almost got the short end of the stick on our first meeting, let alone ordinary ninjas. Minato nodded, so I understand now. Your and Itachi's combined Mangekyou Sharingan attacks could easily take down most of the Uchiha clan members. But what about Fugaku? If Fugaku were present and led a resistance, given his own Mangekyou Sharingan, it wouldn't be so easy to defeat him. Obito thought for a moment, then sighed. Itachi killed clan chief Fugaku and Lady Makoto. Judging from the circumstances, they died in their own home without any signs of violence. They must have realized that Itachi had sided with Konoha, acknowledged the failure of his rebellion, and instead of harming their son, willingly died at his hands. Minato said with some regret, I see. After all, he's her son. It's a good thing Kushina doesn't know about this, otherwise she would be heartbroken if Makoto died. With things mostly cleared up, Minato relaxed. Now, he became curious about Obito. Obito, to be honest, I'm very interested in your Mangekyou Sharingan's space-time ninjutsu. I know that using the Mangekyou Sharingan currently puts a heavy burden on you, but I've heard that you can also use some of its abilities even in your 3-tomo state? Obito laughed. Minato-sensei, I'd actually like to exchange some insights with you about using space-time ninjutsu. How about we have a spar? That way you can directly experience Kamui's power. A fighting spirit immediately ignited in Minato's eyes. He was eager to try. Obito, it's late today. Let's postpone the sparring until tomorrow. I'm also curious to know, just how strong are you right now? Obito couldn't help but recall his past life. Minato-sensei, actually, during the Nine Tails rampage, I fought you once, and you even taught me a lesson. You used Flying Thunder God technique too, followed by a Rasengan to smear my back, catching me completely off guard. Thinking about it now, that feeling was truly unpleasant. Minato said awkwardly, is that so? Kakashi didn't tell me these details. However, he knew his own strength. The Flying Thunder God technique second stage was already his trump card. The fact that it forced him to use such a powerful combo was enough to show how strong Obito was at the time and how much pressure he was under. Was Obito only 14 years old at that time? He was actually quite pleased that his disciple had grown to this level. Minato laughed. Alright, after talking for so long, everyone must be hungry. Let's set up camp, make a fire, and have dinner. The three little ones nodded, and the group quickly got to work, setting up 2 tents and lighting a fire in no time. Afterwards, everyone gathered around the campfire, enjoying the bento boxes made by Kushina, the grilled fish by Kakashi, and the rice balls made by Rin, happily savoring this pleasant time. Even Kakashi narrowed his eyes and praised, Master's wife's cooking is indeed delicious. This uses the setting from Ultimate Ninja Storm, where Kushina is a good cook, but the timeline is 3 years later, so it's unclear whether the current Kushina is making culinary disasters. Rin watched Kakashi eat with a smile and asked, Kakashi, you look so handsome without your mask. Why do you always have to wear one to cover your face? Obito scoffed. What else could it be? To show off, of course. Countless girls have been charmed by that move, haven't they? Kakashi didn't say anything, but subconsciously sped up his eating, finishing his meal in small bites before quickly putting his mask back on. Only then did he slowly say, perhaps I've gotten used to it. Ninjas always hide in the shadows, and I only feel safe when I wear a mask. Otherwise, I feel uncomfortable all over. TCH. Obito scoffed. Kakashi then asked Obito, I remember we prepared 4 tents, why did you only bring out 2? Obito immediately felt embarrassed. 4 is too big and wasteful. We'll have to pack them up when we leave, ha ha ha. Then Obito looked at Rin. Lin, do you still stand by what you said before the mission? Lin was a little confused. What had she said? Obito said, of course, we'd sleep together. Look, both tents are big. It's perfect for you and me to sleep in one, and Kakashi and Minato-sensei can sleep in the other. Rin's face immediately flushed red, and she glared at Obito. HMPH. So that's what you were planning. However, Lin thought for a moment. Fine, since I promised, I'll keep my word. As long as you don't have any bad intentions, it's fine to sleep in the same tent. Yay! Obito flashed a victory sign, swearing he really didn't have any bad intentions. But after being lonely for so long, I just wish that someone would always be there for me. The next day, a light mist filled the forest. Obito slowly woke up and found that Rin was already awake and staring at him. He asked somewhat embarrassedly, Lin, is there something on my face? Rin shook her head. No, it's just that Obito, your sleeping posture is so beautiful that I couldn't help but glance at it a few more times. Obito immediately blushed and got up to go wash up. Rin laughed. Sleeping with Obito isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, he's more shy. Episode 56 Minato vs Obito. After breakfast, since it was still early, the Minato team began their individual training. As agreed yesterday, Minato and Obito found a suitable place nearby to fight and faced each other. Obito looked at Minato and said seriously, Minato-sensei, I'm very strong now, so you'd better be careful. Minato also exuded a subtle confidence. Don't worry, Obito, I don't treat you like a child. After saying that, Minato picked up a tree branch. Since I'm a speed-type ninja, my attacks are extremely fast. So, the battle will begin the moment this branch hits the ground, is that alright? Obito nodded. He knew all too well how difficult Minato-sensei was to deal with. After all, in his previous life, he had just been stunned by the Flying Thunder God technique's second stage and was about to give a few words of acceptance speech. Before he could even finish speaking, Minato had already shoved the weapon into his face. The speed of his movement was so fast that no one could react in time. There is no time to relax when fighting against Minato-sensei. Seeing this, Minato stopped talking and released the branch in his hand. The air around them suddenly became heavy, and as the branch slowly descended, both of them prepared themselves. Smack! The water gate opened the moment the branch hit the ground. Suddenly, 3 kunai appeared in his hand. He threw one into the sky, shot one at Obito, and shot one in all directions. Obito immediately activated his 3-tomo jutsu and began observing the trajectory of all the kunai. In an instant, the kunai aimed at him was right in front of him, and he had to dodge to the side. However, for a kunai bearing the Flying Thunder God mark, dodging doesn't mean the end. On the contrary, it's just the beginning. Sure enough, the next moment, Minato's figure appeared in front of the high-speed kunai, grabbed it, stopped abruptly, changed direction, and slashed at Obito. The entire process was fluid and seamless. Its terrifying aspect lay not only in the instantaneous movement at high speed, but also in Minato's ability to launch an effective attack immediately after the sudden attack. Such lightning-fast reflexes and incredible coordination are simply superhuman. If Obito hadn't already been familiar with Minato's attack methods and was prepared, he would have suffered a great loss. But now, seizing the opportunity, he raised his kunai, turned around, and clashed it with the kunai in Minato's hand. A crisp ding sounded. Their figures separated. In a brief moment, what seemed like an ordinary test was actually a scheme. The dangers involved are perhaps only known to the two sides engaged in combat. Unlike the bell-stealing test, Obito, now possessing the 3-tomo power, unleashed almost all of his strength. Of course, in return, Minato also showed his true skills. The two sides fought to a standstill in a single move. The two moved simultaneously, each wanting to seize the initiative before the other could react. After using up their moves, in a short time, the two weapons collided 7 or 8 more times, the clanging sounds echoing incessantly. However, there is still a difference between a fake academic genius and a real academic genius. Obito's ability to become a top student in this life is partly due to the advantage of being given a second chance at life. However, he still falls short of true academic geniuses like Minato. In a pure speed contest, Obito gradually felt that he was falling behind Minato's pace. Unlike the Raikage's style, which is simply about speed and straightforwardness, Minato's attacks are more unpredictable, with various changes of direction. Obito felt his nerves tightening more and more, and he became increasingly passive in his fight. If he has no other skills, then the fight ends here. Fortunately, his trump card was never just physical skills. Obito stopped clinging to this kind of exchange. When Minato attacked him again, he didn't dodge. Instead, they carefully observed the entire attack trajectory. He plans to blur the background and exploit the post-rocking animation. Minato Namikaze was taken aback. They had been fighting well, but Obito suddenly acted unpredictably, letting his attacks hit him. This was a real hit. Obito would be severely injured even if he didn't die. But from their recent clash, he had a clear understanding of Obito's strength. Even at only 9 years old, Obito was incredibly strong, ridiculously strong. How could such a powerful opponent be so easily struck? So, are we going to use that space-time ninjutsu? Minato was also eager to know what kind of ninjutsu Kakashi described as extremely cheating, the ultimate in cheating. He immediately stopped questioning, and the kunai drew an arc in the air, heading towards Obito. The blow did hit, but it didn't feel like a real hit. The kunai ran across Obito's body from right to left, then completely separated from his body. Obito, however, seemed to have anticipated this. He had been waiting with one hand at the hand that passed through Minato's body, and grabbed it. Instead of retreating, he advanced and pressed forward. The next moment, Obito was already pressed tightly against Minato's body. Not good. Quote, startled, Minato instead charged towards Obito. Bang! The two collided, and using the momentum from the impact, Minato was sent flying backward. Obito sighed in regret. He had caught the aftershock, but Minato had still managed to neutralize it. He could only leap up and keep up with Minato's retreating steps, using this slight advantage to continue his pressure. But the next moment, Minato-sensei's figure suddenly disappeared, and then reappeared in the same spot where he had started. It turns out that the flying thunder god kunai that Minato threw into the air at the beginning fell back down and remained in the same spot. Obito smiled wryly. The flying thunder god technique was simply too much. It would run away after losing just one move, making it difficult to catch up. Obito, getting distracted during a battle is not a good habit. As a result, in his distraction, Minato-sensei's voice rang in his ears again. Could it be? Obito recalled that before Minato disappeared, he had tossed the flying thunder god kunai in the air. So, after teleporting away, it teleported back. This brief moment of distraction was already a huge opening for Minato Namikaze. Minato hit Obito once again. However, this time it still hit an illusion, without any sense of reality. Minato's body passed right through Obito. Obito thought to himself. Thankfully he had been hit by a similar attack in his previous life, and this time he learned his lesson and stayed in the hollow-fied state, otherwise he would have been beaten senseless again. This time, it was Minato's turn to be helpless. He thought, is this what Kakashi meant by hollowification? It's really troublesome, even if I manage to strike at the very moment of a fight. As long as Obito doesn't actively dispel his hollowification state, I'm almost powerless against him. But can Obito hold back from making a move indefinitely? Minato attacked Obito again. Furthermore, while moving, it fired two flying thunder god kunai. As he looked at the kunai coming towards him, Obito had a strong sense of deja vu. Flying thunder god technique, second stage? I'm not falling for that this time. Using intangibility, the kunai pierced through his body, and then the two drew closer and closer. However, because of Minato's action of throwing the kunai, he was a little slower than Obito in his attack. If they make contact now, just like in his previous life, Obito will be the first to encounter Minato. Obito immediately released his hollowification state without hesitation and attacked Minato. Just as they were about to touch, with a whoosh, sure enough, Minato's figure disappeared and reappeared where the kunai had just passed through Obito. In midair, Minato grabbed the kunai and delivered a backflip. The attack arrived in an instant, hitting Obito with almost zero delay. However, it still resulted in nothing. Episode 57 Flying Thunder God Dog and Hollowification Dog. How could Obito possibly fall twice to the same attack? That was just a feint. His materialization was to force out the second stage of the Flying Thunder God technique. The moment he touched Minato's body, he didn't even have a sliver of hope and entered the hollowification state without hesitation. Sure enough, Minato-sensei dodged and attacked him. When Minato's body passed right through him again, he knew his chance had come. He refused to believe that even with the second stage of the Flying Thunder God technique, Minato-sensei couldn't catch the after effects of his attack. So he materialized again, ready to deliver the final blow. This time, I really won. But the next instant, with a whoosh, Minato-sensei's body disappeared again. And it reappeared at the second kunai that had just been fired. Minato deliberately fired the kunai at land not far from the battlefield. Is this some kind of Flying Thunder God technique second stage followed by another Flying Thunder God technique second stage? Obito couldn't help but internally complain. Fortunately, the distance between the two sides was relatively far this time, giving Obito ample time to re-enter hollowification mode. Sure enough, the next moment, Minato-sensei attacked him again, and the attack predictably passed right through him once more. In just a few exchanges, the two sides seemed to be fighting fiercely, but apart from the initial collision, the rest of the time could be summed up in 3 words: hitting thin air. The two stopped fighting and looked at each other. Obito pondered that unless it was a kill at first sight, with Minato's abnormal reaction speed, he could fly away the instant Minato switched from intangible to solid attack. One step faster, every step faster. If Minato-sensei didn't want to be hit, he wouldn't even be able to touch him. Similarly, in Minato Namikaze's mind, if Obito didn't give him an opportunity and kept using his intangible abilities, he wouldn't be able to hit him. This is a battle between the Flying Thunder God Dog and the Hollowification Dog. Because both of their abilities are rather underhanded and they're both shameless, one can't defeat the other. Once they realized this, both sides simultaneously lost their will to fight. Minato said helplessly, "Let's stop. If this keeps up, I don't know how long it'll go on." "Obito, you're really strong." And this is without even activating the Mangekyou Sharingan or using the Flying Thunder God technique. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be a match for you. Obito shook his head. Minato-sensei is truly strong. Even if I mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, I don't know if I could use it to the same extent as him. I feel that even if I activated the Mangekyou Sharingan, I still wouldn't be able to hit him. Even if he activated the Kaleidoscope Sharingan, or even entered the Sage of Six Paths mode, Minato-sensei and Tobirama Senju could still show off their skills. However, by then, his physical attributes had improved dramatically, and his attack speed had surpassed Minato's reaction speed. If Tobirama Senju were to fight Minato head-on instead of as a support, he was confident that he could end the battle in a few rounds. Even at the Six Paths level, mortals cannot easily fabricate stories about it. If you can't overcome the mechanism, then crush it with numbers. However, becoming the Sage of Six Paths is too far off, and Obito can't think about it for the time being. So, the two stopped fighting and instead gathered together, their thoughts wandering as they exchanged their insights on using space-time ninjutsu. After exchanging ideas, both of them gained a lot of inspiration. Minato was eager to know just how powerful Obito would become after learning the Flying Thunder God technique, given his holofication ability. Therefore, seeing that there was still plenty of time, Minato began to wholeheartedly guide Obito's training. The cultivation method is also very simple. Within a specific circle marked by a water gate, the surrounding area was filled with the Flying Thunder God symbol. Obito must stay within this circle to avoid Minato's sudden attacks from all sides. During this time, you cannot become intangible. You can only use the Flying Thunder God technique to dodge. For a time, Obito was forced to jump around and look utterly pathetic. However, due to his experience using Kamui, he was progressing at an incredibly rapid pace. By noon, he was already able to fly around quite skillfully, just like Minato-sensei. Seeing that it was getting late, the two stopped cultivating, hunted some game, and returned to their camp. After having a meal, Meimei and the group rested and continued their journey, returning to Konoha in no time. After submitting the mission at the Hokage building, Minato couldn't wait to go back to Kushina for a kiss, and Kakashi also made an excuse to leave and go back to the Hitaki residence to rest. Only Rin and Obito stayed behind. Rin smiled at Obito and said, "Obito, would you like to come to my house for dinner tonight? My parents would really like to meet my teammates." Obito immediately panicked. "Let's forget it, I'm not mentally prepared." Lin asked Yihuo de Wen Dao. "It's just going back for a meal as a teammate, what's there to prepare?" Obito shook his head. "No, I'll wait until you two are comfortable in trusting you to me before I go see them." Obito's expression turned pleading. "Rin, can you give me a little more time?" Lin blushed slightly. "I already said it's just a meal, not an engagement. We're still young, don't think about weird things." Seeing that Obito was still avoiding her, Rin could only shake her head. "Sigh, I just can't do anything with you." "Fine, I'll go back by myself then." After Rin finished speaking, she was about to leave, but Obito grabbed her hand. "Let's go back a little later. Grandma appeared in my dream last night and said she misses you. Will you come home with me to see her?" Rin couldn't help but tap Obito on the head. What a lame excuse. "I just visited your house not long ago." "Fine, I'll go back with you. Consider it a visit to Grandma." So, hand in hand, the two headed towards the Uchiha clan's territory. When Obito arrived at his doorstep, he saw a familiar figure. Uchiha Shisui was waiting here. Obito was slightly taken aback and asked, "Shisui, what brings you here?" Uchiha Shisui glanced at Obito and Rin's affectionate display, a slight hint of disdain in his heart. He didn't think an Uchiha who liked women was a proper Uchiha. Is Obito truly capable of guiding his training, as Chief Fugaku claimed? Shisui was skeptical, so he said, "Obito-senpai, besides wanting to discuss some issues with you, I also wanted to spar with you." Obito was taken aback. Shisui wanted to test his own strength by fighting him? Is this kid really that bored? In my memory, Shisui should have been a rather composed person, with his heart entirely devoted to his clan and Konoha, right? However, upon further reflection, the Uchiha clan's current situation is not as dire as it would later become, and Shisui has not yet experienced the trials of the Third Shinobi World War, so he probably hasn't developed such profound ideas yet. In particular, Shisui hasn't yet awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan, which can alter a person's will and is known as Koto Amatsukami. Every Uchiha who awakens the Mangekyou Sharingan undergoes intense mental trauma, resulting in a drastic personality change that makes them completely different from their previous selves. This is all normal. So, the current state of still water and the future state of still water are different? Before experiencing various setbacks, was he still a fairly typical Uchiha genius? That's true. Any Uchiha who awakens the Mangekyou Sharingan, no matter how humble and polite they appear on the outside, are actually very arrogant and disdainful of everyone. Thinking of this, Obito released Rin's hand and smiled slightly. What, so eager to prove yourself that you even went so far as to wait for me at my doorstep after my mission ended? Although Shisui was polite, he was still a child after all, and when provoked like that, he immediately let out a childish hum. You could understand it that way, Obito-senpai. After all, I heard you haven't awakened your Sharingan yet, but I'm different from you. After saying this, he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, a magatama, a type of jade ornament, was slowly rotating in his bloodshot eye socket. Episode 58. Shisui is already developing the Phantom Instantaneous Movement technique. Obito was quite surprised to see Shisui open his One-Tomo Sharingan. While it's normal for an Uchiha to awaken a One-Tomo Sharingan, it's still surprising to see someone so young. Obito praised, Shisui, you are indeed a genius. Considering the advantage of your Uchiha clan bloodline, your talent even surpasses Kakashi's. Lin, who was standing to the side, was taken aback and immediately felt a little unconvinced. Kakashi was already the most talented ninja she had ever seen, and he was also their teammate. How could Obito boost the morale of others while diminishing the spirit of his own? But what did Obito call this little guy just now? I think it was Shisui. Rin was startled. Could this Shisui be the same Shisui that Obito had mentioned, one of the 4 future Mangekyou Sharingan users of the Uchiha clan? That Shisui, who was, to some extent, on par with Minato during the Third Shinobi World War. Thinking of this, Lin rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Although she had heard Obito mention Shisui's great name, she never equated such a powerful figure with this little guy who looked even smaller than Obito. This little kid actually acquired a legendary title in the future, reaching the level of an elite Jonin as described by Minato-sensei. Thinking about it this way, Lin felt a little insecure. She couldn't help but recall Kakashi's future strength, and then realized with dismay that although Kakashi, who became a Jonin at the age of 12, was excellent, he was not yet capable of earning a title similar to Shisui's body flicker technique. Suddenly, she felt a deep sense of defeat. Kakashi's genius had actually been outshone? Seeing that Rin looked somewhat dejected, Obito leaned close to her ear and whispered words of comfort. Rin, there's nothing we can do about it. This world is too focused on bloodlines. Once a bloodline awakens, it instantly surpasses years of effort by others. It's not that Kakashi isn't talented enough, but the Uchiha Sharingan is just too unreasonable. Lin sighed. Although she was unwilling, she could only acknowledge the unfairness brought about by this difference in bloodline. Meanwhile, Shisui thought the two were shocked by his awakening of his eyes, and he felt quite smug. Obito-senpai, Kakashi-senpai's talent is indeed astonishing, but we Uchiha are the strongest. For example, I could graduate from the Ninja Academy early if I wanted to, do you believe it? Obito nodded and said, of course I believe you, but why don't you graduate? Wouldn't it be better to become a ninja early? Shisui shook his head. Obito-senpai, I think the body flicker technique is a fantastic technique with a lot of potential for further development, especially after awakening my Sharingan. I suddenly had an idea to combine the body clone technique with the body flicker technique. However, this idea isn't easy to realize, so I need to stay at the Ninja Academy and learn a lot more. Upon hearing Shisui's words, Obito couldn't help but take them seriously. Is Shisui already developing his signature ninjutsu? Obito saw that move as having enormous potential. It manifests as the creation of numerous clones, each resembling a clone technique. At first glance, they appear to be mere illusions used to deceive, but if the enemy underestimates them, they will suffer greatly, because these phantoms can transform into real bodies and launch attacks at any time. This is almost like his intangibility. It's an ability that makes him invincible if no countermeasure is found. Moreover, because of the large number of clones attacking from all directions, the pressure he exerts on the enemy from the front even surpasses that of his intangible form. These clones are merely phantoms, making them difficult for the enemy to eliminate. However, because each clone has the potential to materialize, the enemy must remain vigilant. The result was that the enemy, caught in a state of constant anxiety and helplessness, became utterly desperate. Therefore, Shisui of the body flicker, like the yellow flash, became someone you could abandon your mission and run away from if you encountered him. Obito was intrigued. The phantom body flicker technique was a perfect match for him. Once he learned this technique, combined with intangibility, enemies would have even less of a chance to distinguish between the clone and the real body. Hey, you thought I was a clone? Actually, I just used blurring. Hey, you thought I used blurring? But actually, it's just a clone. The thought of such a battle is incredibly exciting. Moreover, Obito judged that he possessed all the necessary conditions to learn this technique, a solid foundation in the three body techniques and at most the genjutsu power of the Mangekyou Sharingan. Therefore, he's determined to learn this skill. Shisui, you came to me because you wanted to develop this technique? You should have said so earlier. I also have extensive knowledge of the three bodies technique. I could have helped you with your research. Shisui admitted, indeed, that's what I thought when I approached them. After all, I'd heard that Obito-senpai became the school's top student using the three-body techniques, but, Senior Obito, sparring with you is my idea too. After all, no one is more skilled than me, so what right do you have to instruct me? Obito nodded. You're right, everything is decided by strength. Let's go to the Uchiha training grounds and have a fight. To be honest, I'm very interested in the technology you're developing. If you could get me involved, I'd be happy to share my knowledge with you. Shisui was taken aback. He could vaguely see a huge confidence in Obito. This confidence was not outward, unlike that of other Uchiha clan members who seem to be looking down on everyone. But it's ingrained in your very being, giving you a feeling that you have everything under control. He couldn't help but become cautious, because he sensed the aura of a kindred spirit, an aura that only a genius like him could perceive. Without corresponding strength, it would be impossible to cultivate such a state of mind. He slightly suppressed his disdain. Then, Senior, let's go. The two stopped talking and headed towards the training field. Lin followed behind the two, a hint of anticipation creeping in. Obito never does anything useless. She had only ever seen this kind of cautious attitude from him when he was learning the Flying Thunder God technique. It seems that the technique Shisui developed was just as important to Obito as the Flying Thunder God technique. Could this be the origin of the legendary title, Shisui of the Body Flicker technique? Just like the Yellow Flash and the Flying Thunder God technique. Soon, the three arrived at the training ground. Obito and Shisui formed opposing hand seals, while Rin became the temporary referee. Before the battle began, Rin looked at the two of them and said gently, "Good luck to both of you. Give it your all. I'm a medical ninja, so I'll heal you no matter what injuries you get." The reason I say this is because no matter how strong Shisui becomes in the future, he is still just a little kid right now. Rin didn't think Obito, who had fought to a draw with Minato, would lose. So this oil was actually added by Shisui. Little brother Shisui, do your best to defeat this despicable Demon King Obito. But from Shisui's perspective, Rin-senpai was incredibly gentle. He suddenly understood why Obito, as an Uchiha, was so infatuated with a woman. He nodded and smiled. Don't worry, Senior Lin, I'll hold back. Lin smiled and announced, the battle begins. Episode 59 Flying Thunder God bullies Shisui. Logically speaking, in such friendly matches, the weaker side usually attacks first, while the stronger side adopts a defensive stance. Obito considered himself the stronger party and should have given Shisui a few moves. But ever since he learned the Flying Thunder God technique, he has developed a deep obsession with gaining the upper hand. For example, going in with invincible intangibility and then unleashing a Rasengan seems pretty cool. However, Obito doesn't know the Rasengan now, and he doesn't plan to learn it in the future. The Rasengan is indeed a powerful single-target destructive ninjutsu without hand seals, and it is indeed very suitable for high-speed close combat, but compared to Kamui, which can break through Kaguya's defense, the Rasengan is not very valuable. As for holofication, Obito did not intend to reveal this ability to Shisui. However, this did not stop him from following Minato's example from the start, firing 3 Flying Thunder God kunai in one go. One left in place, one shot towards the empty space beside Shisui, and one shot towards Shisui himself. Upon seeing this, Shisui revealed a hint of disdain. Obito, as the elder, not only attacked first but also threw hidden weapons at him. This was simply a foolish idea. There's a saying that goes, trying to use a kunai in front of a Sharingan is suicide. So, he instantly activated his first tomo, slightly turning his body to dodge the kunai Obito threw, feeling somewhat disappointed. Obito-senpai, if this is all you've got, then this battle should end here. However, the next second, Obito's figure suddenly disappeared. Shisui was startled. What was going on? Was it the body flicker technique? But even though his Sharingan had seen through everything, he couldn't detect any trace of the body flicker technique being used. No, this isn't your average body flicker technique. Shisui suddenly sensed a faint fluctuation of chakra behind him. Not good. Quote, Shisui instinctively turned around, wanting to defend himself. However, in that moment of hesitation, he had already left behind a huge, irreparable flaw. Obito's kunai slowly pressed against the back of his head. Seeing this, Obito smiled and said, Sorry, Shisui, my fighting style is becoming more and more speed-oriented, so I can often end a battle in an instant. If you didn't see clearly how you lost, we can do it again. Despite having a junior who invented the phantom body flicker technique, Obito was still very patient. Actually, Shisui's ability to react to the Flying Thunder God technique's initial attack and realize there was danger behind him was already quite surprising. As expected of the future Shisui of the body flicker technique, he was able to detect even such a faint chakra fluctuation from the Flying Thunder God technique. However, the gap between the two is still huge. Even if Shisui knows that he can use flash, he can't keep up with his speed and will still be instantly killed. On Shisui's side, however, he felt a tremendous sense of absurdity and frustration. It wasn't that he couldn't accept losing. After all, Obito was a senior whom Fugaku valued, and it was impossible for him to be completely without ability. But the defeat he envisioned was one where both sides exhausted all their methods and were defeated after a fierce battle, not this one where it only took a short moment from start to finish, and he hadn't even figured out what was going on. He was indeed not convinced, and gritted his teeth, saying, "Then let's do it again." Obito nodded slightly. "Okay." The instant he finished saying, "Okay," Obito released the kunai in his hand and swiftly returned to his original position. Shisui was stunned again. "You just got here like this?" Obito nodded. "That's right. You can think of it as a kind of advanced body flicker technique. As long as there's a medium, you can appear next to me at any time to launch an attack." Shisui pondered for a moment, recalling the kunai Obito had just shot at him. Therefore, the medium was. He subconsciously glanced at the kunai that Obito had released and stuck at his feet. "Quite perceptive, but you forgot, there's more than one arrow aimed at you." Obito's voice rang out behind Shisui again, and the kunai in his hand was once again pressed against the back of his head. This time, Obito even had time to pat Shisui on the shoulder, reminding him that he had been hit. Shisui was filled with shock and anger. "Let's try again. This time I won't fall for it. I've seen through everything, yeah?" Quote. Obito smiled and instantly returned to his original position. This time, he specifically reminded him of that. "Are you ready?" "If you are, I'm about to begin." Shisui nodded. "It's done." "Obito-senpai, please come over." This time, he had marked all three Flying Thunder God kunai, so that no matter which one Obito teleported to, he could react immediately. However, the next moment, Obito suddenly appeared in front of him, their faces almost touching. "Shisui, are you convinced now?" Obito's kunai was pressed against his abdomen again. Shisui instantly lost the will to continue fighting. He suddenly realized that the gap between him and Obito was simply beyond comprehension. Obito was just toying with him, but he still wanted to understand why. Didn't this teleportation technique require a medium? He had clearly marked all the mediums. Could it be? Shisui gave a wry smile, looked at his shoulder, and sure enough, saw that a Flying Thunder God mark had been placed on it. It was when Obito reminded him to pat his shoulder just now. Shisui bowed deeply to Obito. "Obito-senpai, I concede. So you're this strong? I didn't know the body flicker technique could be used like this. I was too arrogant before. In the face of a true powerhouse, I was helpless." Obito was secretly pleased. It felt so good to use the Flying Thunder God technique to bully ninjas who were inferior to him. He patted Jishui's head. "Actually, you don't need to belittle yourself. Losing to me isn't shameful. If you have any questions in the future, feel free to come and ask me anytime. Let me first tell you about the problems you exposed in this battle." Although Shisui felt very uncomfortable being patted on the head by a senior who wasn't much older than him, he could only obediently listen to him for now. Obito said seriously, "You are very confident in your own strength, and you are also very confident in your Sharingan. Therefore, you believe that everything is under your control. But if the enemy slips out of your control, you often lack the means to deal with them. For example, in the final strike, you think you've marked the locations of all the kunai, so you're not worried at all about the enemy attacking from other directions. This is a very bad habit." Obito said seriously, "It's the same with genjutsu. If you think you've taken down your opponent with a genjutsu and feel that everything is under your control, but it turns out that your opponent has already broken through your genjutsu and is just waiting for you to be careless to launch a sneak attack, reaching out and gouging out your Sharingan, how would you deal with that?" Shisui, sweating profusely, said, "Obito-senpai, I understand. No matter how strong someone is, we can't let our guard down. I will definitely pay attention to this. Underestimating an opponent will come at a great cost." Obito nodded. "Remember this lesson. You may encounter many ninjas in the future who are neither clever nor cunning, possessing neither special bloodline limits nor any strange abilities. In battles against them, you might gradually forget what happened today. Shisui shook his head and said with a wry smile, "No, this lesson is enough for me to remember for the rest of my life." Obito chuckled. "So, am I qualified now to hear about the technique you want to develop?" Shisui nodded. Even if Obito hadn't brought it up, he had wanted to say it for a long time. The technical threshold of this technique was too high, and it wasn't easy to find someone to talk to, so he couldn't wait to start sharing his theories. Episode 60 Obito's 3 Tomo, Shisui shocked. It took Shisui a long time to explain the principles behind the phantom body flicker technique. This technique is indeed very complex. To put it simply, the shadow clone technique is a type of illusion technique, but it only possesses the ability to interfere with vision and does not contain chakra. Without chakra, one cannot perform reverse summoning or unleash the body flicker technique. However, clones created using Sharingan Genjutsu can be marked with a Sharingan Genjutsu mark, giving the clones certain chakra characteristics as well. In this way, one can use this chakra to perform reverse summoning and achieve the effect of body flicker technique. Therefore, in theory, it is possible to use the Sharingan to create a large number of clones and mark each of these clones. The main body can use these markers to teleport to any clone at any time, and of course, it can also teleport away at any time. After hearing this, Obito also thought it was an absolutely brilliant idea. However, it is also very difficult. How to mark clones, and how to teleport to a precise clone in a battle with a large number of clones. These 2 points alone require extremely strong skills in illusion and sealing techniques, as well as an abnormal level of mastery of teleportation. But coincidentally, Obito met all of these criteria. To learn the Flying Thunder God technique, he put in a lot of effort in body flicker technique and sealing technique. As for Genjutsu, although it was not his specialty, he had used the Mangekyou Sharingan to control the 4th Mizukage, Yagura, for a long time, so he had quite a lot of experience. Therefore, he is 99% confident that he can learn this technique, provided that he helps Shisui develop and perfect it. Right now, this technique is still only in the realm of ideas. So he imparted to Shisui a great deal of experience in body flicker technique and Genjutsu. This experience came from either the Mangekyou Sharingan or the Flying Thunder God technique, and was the most advanced experience in the entire ninja world. In an instant, Shisui's horizons were broadened, and he had a sense of enlightenment every time Obito said a word. However, Shisui was also somewhat puzzled and couldn't help but ask, "Obito-senpai, are you really not awakened? Why do I feel that you are unusually familiar with Sharingan Genjutsu, even surpassing the understanding of those 3 Tomo clan members I've encountered?" Obito looked around warily and said, "Shisui, can you keep this a secret? Swear you won't tell anyone?" Shisui's breathing suddenly became rapid. He realized that Obito-senpai had indeed awakened the Sharingan, otherwise he wouldn't have such rich experience. So he nodded. "I swear, I won't tell a single word." Obito smiled and said, "Then I believe you." After saying that, he instantly activated his 3 Tomo. For a moment, Shisui stood there, stunned. 3 Magatama. He had tried his best to overestimate it, but he still didn't expect that Obito's Sharingan had actually evolved to the highest level. Immediately, that sense of frustration returned, and this time, it was real. They were being suppressed in terms of Uchiha bloodline talent. Having awakened the Sharingan once, he knew how difficult it was to awaken it, and he had no confidence that he could evolve his eyes to their highest form at Obito's age. Is this the one and only genius the Fugaku clan chief spoke of? I'm starting to believe it. It turns out that Obito-senpai didn't even use half his full strength when he fought me just now. Beside her, Lin covered her mouth and chuckled. Even Obito's 3 Tomo form was enough to shock Shisui Uchiha, but she had seen the kaleidoscope shape of Obito's 3 sides. Thinking back on those eyes now, they were quite beautiful. Seeing Shisui's sullen expression, Obito patted him on the shoulder. "Shisui, your talent is already quite remarkable. Although I do possess some unique talent in awakening my eyes, my situation is also quite special and cannot be used as an example for comparison. Actually, the difference between you and me is more about age." Shisui looked incredulous. "Obito-senpai isn't that much older than me, okay? But don't worry, he's not so easily discouraged. From now on, Obito-senpai will be my role model, and I will strive to be like him." These words were spoken with absolute certainty, and Obito sensed a powerful conviction in them. As expected, every Uchiha who could awaken the Mangekyou Sharingan was no normal person. Obito felt that if Uchiha Shisui hadn't died so young, he would definitely have had a place in the 4th Shinobi World War. He glanced at the sky and chuckled. "Good, it's admirable to have such ambition, but it's getting late. How about we figure out what to do for dinner?" Shisui immediately said, "Thank you for your help today, Obito-senpai and Rin-senpai. How about I treat you tonight?" Lin's eyes lit up immediately, and she leaned closer. Really? Shisui replied earnestly, of course it's true. How about I invite you two seniors to the Akamichi family's barbecue restaurant for a meal? Lin was very touched. The barbecue restaurant owned by the Akamichi family was delicious, but it was also very expensive. She wouldn't dare to be so extravagant unless it was an important day. She asked somewhat cautiously, wouldn't this be a bit too expensive? Beside him, Obito chuckled, go eat. We definitely won't eat him out of house and home. Besides, Rin, if you want to eat, we can go anytime. Don't forget, I'm an elder of the Uchiha clan now. Lin suddenly remembered that Obito had also become a wealthy dog owner. The Uchiha clan truly lived up to its reputation as a powerful and wealthy family. So, the group headed towards the barbecue restaurant. The group had just reached the shop entrance when they encountered Hongdu. Lin approached curiously. Hongdu, are you here for dinner too? Hongdu nodded happily. Yes, I did well on the exam today, my grades improved again, and I got a lot of money from my parents, so I came to enjoy myself. Rin, you're eating here too? Being a ninja really does bring wealth. Lin laughed and said, it wasn't me, someone else treated us. After saying that, Rin pointed to Shisui standing next to Obito. Let me introduce you. Uchiha Shisui is a member of Obito's clan. Red Bean's eyes lit up, so it's the Uchiha clan. No wonder they're so rich, able to treat everyone to barbecue. After a pause, Enko looked at Shisui's face as if she remembered something. So you're Shisui. I've heard of you, the new genius of the Ninja Academy, no less than Kakashi back in the day. Shisui immediately replied in alarm. I am far from being comparable to Kakashi-senpai, and I do not deserve such praise. Because of Obito, Shisui overestimated Kakashi by more than one level. He couldn't imagine just how outstanding Kakashi-senpai must have been to suppress Obito during their student days to the point where he was once relegated to the bottom of the class. When Obito said that Kakashi's talent even surpassed Kakashi's, he was probably just trying not to damage Kakashi's confidence. Red Bean tilted her head and thought for a moment, is that so? But everyone says so. Anyway, you're all geniuses. I don't know who's better than whom. Let's not think about that today, let's share a table. Shisui glanced at Rin and Obito, and seeing that they had no objections, nodded. Alright, since they're friends of Rin-senpai and Obito-senpai, let's eat together. Then let's go in. Hongdu took the lead and excitedly headed into the store, only to bump right into someone coming out. Bang! Hongdu fell to the ground, tears welling in her eyes as she clutched her head. Ouch! Who was that? Don't they watch where they're going? Hongdu looked up, and upon recognizing the person, her expression changed, and she swallowed back the 800 curses that were about to spill from her mouth. Orochimaru looked at Enko with considerable interest, his voice as hoarse as ever. It seems like you weren't watching where you were going.